Hi there. This is your Sensei Al Bob, and welcome to the coal pit. This is where I sleep down in the basement, and it's warm. You can hear the boiler going, and a little dusty, a little dank, uh, but talking about habitual actions. Wow. You know, when I wrote this, it's a protocol. Breaking habitual actions by relaxation through breath, part one. The Sensei Owl, and I did this class on a 9/10/08, um, and I wrote this in '08. Right, started with the new year. I usually, come up with ideas and I put topics in my laptop, and then I start journaling about them. And then I start writing about them, and then I do research about them, and then I outline them, and then I do more research, and then I start writing. And and my real the part I like every part of my work, and pretty much everything I've ever done. I've only did it because I enjoyed doing it, right? And so I put down a notification that this is going to be at 7, and I started a little bit early because I was looking to see what my this is the first time I've done this. So um, I started up, and we'll see if we keep going after 7 p.m. or if the machine skids us out and puts up two shows at once or what it does. I really don't know what I'm doing, you know. And pretty much I've never known what I've done, right? I'm what is known in the esoteric world as a lucky bastard. You know, someone who isn't, um, under the thumb of a discipline or a mystery school or a codex. Now, I've studied them all. I've had teachers who were part of them. There were plenty of my mentors who wanted me to join theirs, and because I was a lucky bastard, and there are not too many of us around. And lucky bastards have not a clue of what they're doing. They're totally innocent. They're naive, and they serve love's co-creation without even knowing it. I mean, that's what they do. They're honest. They can't lie. They can't cheat. They can't steal. And so they don't because they can't. You know, why do something you can't do? You know, and but they are always in the right place. Um, and so, can you guys chat me something so I know that everything's working relatively well since there's two of you there? So here I am in the coal mine. You want to know anything about the coal pit here, the basement? Um, you know. Anyway, so there's this protocol I wrote for I used to, between '08 and 2015, I worked in the corporate world, and I was a consultant for desperate lawyers who were in contractual, meaning there's a corporation, they have a contract. A certain thing comes up, the contract's about to be broken, there's going to be a lot of problems. They, each side of the broken contract gets their own lawyer, and they start fighting, and the people who represent the different parties don't care if it takes forever. They bill by the hour. At a certain point, whatever judge or court this is in will say, okay, that's enough. I'm going to declare an ombudsman. And they pick somebody who doesn't have an axe in the fight, and what their skin of the game is, they will not get paid until they get the people to sign on the dotted line, right? And so They go into negotiation, they negotiate, and they negotiate. And the people have enough money to, they don't care. It's usually a personal thing. Mommy loved you more, da 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 da, right? So that's when I would show up. And usually when they were desperate, meaning the judge would give them X amount of time for them to get this done. If they couldn't get in that time, well, the judge summarily would, and that's supposed to be the motivation for all parties to get along, to negotiate with the ombudsman, because if the judge decides one side or the other or no side will be happy, they can negotiate something. At least everyone can get a little piece of what they want. And but the poor ombudsman doesn't get paid at all. He might have, $100,000 to $1 million worth of time in and resources spent, and that's when I'm brought online. Because I had, because I was a, lucky bastard. I had no idea what I was doing, but pretty much everything I do worked out in the end, right? Somewhat saves the day, right? Mm. And I don't care, I really don't care, because the only thing I serve is love's co-creation. Anyway, when a number of corporate folks saw me, they said, "Well, what else can you do?" And I said, "Well, I can get, not only get you morons to get along, I can get your business enterprise to get along much better. If everyone can communicate and get along with each other, well, maybe your business will do even better." And so I would be brought in to do seminars on this, right? And this little thing is a protocol that I wrote, right? So I'm going to read it to you guys, see how I do. Okay. Breaking habitual actions by relaxation through breath, part 1, with Sensei Ao 91008. And then I start. Which of our separated robot habitual actions of fear, greed, selfish hate, ignorance, and prejudicial thinking is the hardest pattern to break? It's like drugs, alcohol, cigarettes. They are all related. Have one, you want the others. What are your worst habits? But those we most fear of being found out about. Our habitual actions that brings us the most shame are those we most fear of being found out about. Our habitual actions that bring us the most shame are those that we perform with the highest level of recidivism. We do this not out of reason, but out of fear, to hide from those things we cannot face: rejection, abandonment, and the fear most excruciating to face, that of the unknown. And what unknown is the most difficult to face but that of death and its existential duality of death's seeming finality and its path for spiritual meaning in our world of infinite spiritual emptiness. Cultural death, Culturally, death and spiritual emptiness are the cornerstones to the reason that we humans act habitually by living in a world of our own edifice, a separated robot reality of fear, anger, violence, greed, selfish hate, ignorance, and prejudicial thinking. Death is not the problem. And spiritual emptiness is just a matter of not sensing the roses in the garden. As the Buddha said to his students, death is like slipping out of a snug slipper, not something to waste your whole life on. And to see the roses, you first have to realize you are in the garden. Okay. So, what did you guys get out of that? There's 3 of you there, you know? Hi, gang. This is your sensei, Al Bob, showing you where he's bedding down every night. This is where I go to sleep every night, right? For the last 3 weeks, right? It said I'm down in the cold bin, sleeping next to the boiler, and at least it's warm, right? It's a little dusty, it's a little dank, you know, but I sleep very well down here in that all I do is meditate, and bingo, I go into state, and I sleep a good 12 hours. And you'd think it being coal dust, it'd be a little more dusty than it is. It's dusty enough, but anyway, so here I am, your Sensei Al Bob, your griot, here to tell you a story. And remember, don't believe anything I say. This is just a story. And this show is not for children. It's not about children, even though grown-ups act childish, and most children are way more adult than adults. But that's just the way it is. The YouTube folks here have been changing their mind on everything by the day. I've already signed about 5 or 6 of their, agreements, because sometime after the new year, they don't even say when, everything's going to change, right? And I would suggest all of you who watch this show, and there's about 50,000 of you, even though there's only 347 subscribers, and I don't like calling them subscribers. You're my adepts. You're the chorus. Even though you're not singing much here, there's 3 of you. Say anything. Just say anything so I know that the live chat works. Let's see if the live chat works. Okay, let's see. Okay. Well, it seems it works. So, what did you get out of that, right? As Buddha says, death ain't a big deal. I've died 6 times, and I, keep coming back because I'm a lucky bastard. And I don't think bastard is it's one of those curse words. I don't think. Anyway, I am that. And what that is that love's co-creation always watches my back. Now, life doesn't mean it's comfortable. I mean, dying is not a comfortable thing. Each time I died, it wasn't fun, right? So I'll go back and start reading. In my life, I have died many times. At birth, I died twice. My mother, all during my 9-month stay in her womb, was a 2-pack a day smoker, a 22 cup of coffee a day drinker, and a 3 Manhattan a night imbibing Catholic drinker. In her eyes, all this was fine, for the AMA and the Catholic Church stated at that time, as long as she kept pumping out babies, the rest of her habitual actions were fine. At 45, my mother was habitually having children without the thought of the consequences. 3 siblings and 2 stillbirths before my birth, my mother saw it her God-ordained responsibility to have children, even though she had no love to give to them. She followed habitually the orthodoxy of her religion without the slightest thought of the consequences of her actions or her family, on her family, her community, her world, her soul, her creator. So what do you say about that? Oh, I might move. There's another place I can sit just over there. Okay, I'm going to move. It's a little more comfortable. A little more. a little colder. It's really, you'd think just coming, I don't know, how many steps was that? 6? But this house being haunted, this is one of these places with ghosts. This actually is like where one of them likes to sit. So I'm like sitting in the ghost lap. Now none of these apparitions have a couple of no, I can't say that. A couple have kind of hung out on the rafters, but I didn't get to see. But I can feel it's a good 10 degrees cooler than just over there. Let's see. As my mother, our habitual actions are unconscious responses to our free will's projection of our separated existence from our Creator's unconditional love and forgiveness. Right? So just think how all of this goes down in the corporate world. There I am standing up at a lectern, nice suit. Yes, I actually wore suits. And especially, for a 3-day weekend of putting on a sensitivity training, I'd dress up like a circus monkey, and wearing a suit, I almost thought I was a circus monkey. But I was well trained, meaning the guy who started Werner Erhard, right? I had a really good friend. He was a really great painter. He had potential to be the next Jackson Pollock. We lived in we shared a building in Soho. We were some of the first people to live in the factory buildings of Soho. We lived on Worcester Street. He did. I kind of, I had a space above on the ceiling, and it was one of Benny's buildings. And Benny was a super of about 10 buildings on Worcester Street in Soho, between Spring and Mercer. Actually, from Houston down to Canal, but Spring and Mercer were where most of his buildings were. And they were kind of interconnected. They had tunnels. And New York City had tunnels everywhere, right? Whenever, there was a time in the politics that people weren't supposed to be seen doing something, they'd dig a tunnel, right? So that's why Donnie's idea of building a fence is a friggin' joke. I saw a picture the other day that a guy, nailed a bunch of wood that he found kicking around from the construction site and built a ladder 32 feet high that went up, and he brought a rope with him, and he kind of slid down. And it took all of 10 minutes to build, to go and pick up all the wood that the construction guys left around, nail it together, climb up one side, and slide down the other. And that's where your billions are going, kids. So, my friend, the painter, he had issues, right? Like most people do. How well you navigate your issues is how well your life is. Like, look at me. Here I am, homeless, and I'm, living down here, but this is fine. It's warm. It's comfy. I have company, spirits, who are somewhat very nice. They're not very mean. I have, and it's, again, what are my 3 rules? Doctor, do no harm. 2, do not get involved unless you have a exit strategy. I got one. 3, don't get involved unless you can learn something. Now, here, I've learned a lot. I knew, I've dealt with the paranormal before, but man, I've been living in the basement with these guys. And there are lots of them. And one thing I've learned, and I kind of knew this, that they're not all dead. A lot of them say, hey, we're not dead. We're just from another dimension. And we're just we can peek our head in to see what you guys are up to. It's interesting. It's better than TV, So nothing is as you think it is, right? And that's one of the problems of habitual actions. You do something over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Sorry, that is the Freudian definition of being friggin' nuts, you know? Uh, the main motivation of all our soul suffering is our flawed navigation through the fabricated sea of negativity, irrelevant smells, tastes, and touches, making small, malevolent course of corrections through our lives of separation and distraction from our Creator's reason for our existence, to be part of its unconditional love and forgiveness. How often do you do that? You know, you do stuff and it affects people to the severeness of it all. I mean, I can navigate almost anything. You know, I've lived in war zones. I've lived with starving people. I've lived in Africa with indigenous folk. I lived in Brazil with indigenous folk. I lived in um, Australia with indigenous folk. And the interesting thing about, I've lived in the United States with indigenous folk. And all of the indigenous folk, no matter what their culture or what location they had, um, the one commonality was white people trying to kill them. So if you're having a hard time just because you don't have the right color sneakers, ooh, gang, I keep talking about this window of opportunity. You know, we're right now at 13. It's counting down. You know, after New Year's, it'll be 12 months of opportunity, and that's opportunity that we can easily deal with. So, and I'm going to be telling you a lot of different stories as we go along, and they will all kind of mix, and we'll see what you make out of it. I'd like to hear what you're making out of any of this. It helps me. Oh, there's Buddy. Oh, Captain. Yes. Welcome aboard, my man. So, hey, did you get any of that stuff I sent you over the internet? Like, one of my little new ideas is that instead of doing this all the time, lots of people send me stuff that I go, wow, that's amazing. You know, I'd love to. I've tried to show it to you over my phone, but no, that doesn't work. I've learned if you send me something over to my the dude awake 42 at Gmail, I can then link you to these amazing things. So, did you get that stuff, buddy, from Dark Journalist? Who this guy is really got it down. He's let's see, I shall check. He really interviewed some interesting people. He interviewed Joseph P. Farrell. He, Susan Austin Fitz, or who's the economist, Linda. He did do Linda Moulton Howe, and this guy is really good. He does all his homework. He's got a good staff. He's got way better. Well, I don't know. This is kind of an interesting aesthetic, but he's got all the hardware, all of the know-how to put together a pretty good show, like with graphics but just think how much it would cost to CGI this place, So, and a lot of you have. So I've sent out a lot of this stuff, a lot of these interviews with these people, and other folks like Jimmy Dore is another person I really like. I think he's one of the best news elements there is, right? Because he really cuts to the bottom line of what it's all about, right? So I like him for that. So back to it. So my friend, the painter guy, he was neurotic, and you name it, he was it. But he kept plugging away at the art, and his biggest problem was, I would get him exposure. His mother too was in the art world, so he had a lot of good directions in that. People who would collect things and gallery owners would come and look at his stuff, right? So, and he was really good. So they would, have a show for him, but he was very nervous about meeting people. Gmail's not loading, but I've been having the worst time with everything electronic, everything. and I'm just amazed that I keep phoning. I was supposed to have a meeting with some interesting people today, and I said, okay, we're going to do it, right? And I said, it's been raining here like you can't believe. And up here on the farm, if it rains real hard, everything's muddy, and getting up that hill and down it is problematic. So I don't go. I don't. It rains very quickly, you know. But I woke up this morning and everybody had left to go up to work, and I said, "Well, if they can get out." So I walked out there and it wasn't that muddy, so I drove. Now my friend thought I said I would call him if I was coming, but I actually said, if I can't get out, I'll call you, but I'll meet you at such and such, right? So I got there, and he wasn't there, and I waited, and I, had a little drink, and I had a little food, and then other people started coming in that I haven't met that were really good. Meaning was whether I met this other person or not. What was truly amazing, I met about 6 other people who was really great that I met, and so. So it's, as I was saying, I'm a lucky bastard. Things always work out, no matter how terrible they are. I have zero money. I have all of $43 until the middle of January. But am I winning? No. Yep, dark journalist. That's it. Yep. And what he has a series, like how I have series, like we're having this series now, Window of Opportunity. He has a series called X, right? And X stands for, within the dynamics of the mystery schools. I mean, this guy is well trained in the mystery school. So any of you guys who bother, I want to study the mystery schools. Well, you should watch this guy, And he is a great journalist. He does his homework. He's got a good staff. There are a lot of people digging into things. And he's always well prepared when he does a show. Me, I just hit the button, go live, I just kind of, but that's the beauty of being a griot. I can just tell you a story. And so he's gone really deep into the whole, I keep talking about the hidden hand and how the reality of things is really Stan Lee's Captain America. Well, he's done the homework. He's got lists and lists of scholarly tomes and books and articles that he quotes from, right? It's just, the other person I sent you, buddy, is a guy named Christopher Hitchens, who's written a number of really amazing books about kind of what's going on. The issues of, Mr. Dark Journalist, he's quite, like I said, he's a journalist. So he's just the facts, man, just the facts. Now, he's got his own, agenda or opinion, but he's really good at not trying to mix it in there, right? Chris, on the other hand, eloquent writer, just speaks the word. And the other thing about him, what I love about this guy, is that what he is serving is love's co-creation, meaning his father was a minister, right? And his father was very successful, right? Was on the fast track, going to be a bishop, blah, blah, blah. But he never took his eye off what was real, and that was love's co-creation. So he helped homeless people. He helped black people. He helped, this is in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. He helped gay people. So in his church, he accepted everyone. So he's in a pretty rich white, Methodist or Protestant church. And all these people, who are these smelly people from the street? Black people. Oh my God, that's a man with a dress on. This guy did not. And what's great about Chris's father, he's not like all of this new liberal / being progressive, because those guys are more or less fascists. If you don't believe what I believe, then you're a terrible person. No, this guy said, I don't care. I love everybody. I forgive everybody. I'm not throwing any baby out with the bathwater. Whereas the progressives, have you read the new Green Deal? It's like you're going, it's like worse than Obamacare, But Mr. Dark Journalist, goes all the way back, all the way back to like the 11th century, and he's all into the mystery schools. He's all into the Illuminati. He's all into all of the different characters and where they came from, who they connect to. Keeps going, keeps going. He goes into, the Revolutionary War. He goes into the, Civil War. He goes into all the wars and the warriors. Who's making the money? Who's connected to what? And he's going into World War II. German people bombed into the Stone Age, but the Third Reich, Hail Hydra, comes to America through Operation Paperclip, bringing 70,000 people. And there's not all rocket scientists. There's, spies and killers and, thieves and you name it. And that's why we have the dark state. And it always was there because he shows the connections that before the Second World War, what happened in the First World War, what happened in the Spanish-American War, what happened, in all the other wars, who started what. He is really thorough and great. And if he has, he's a blog, so he puts it up free. But if you want to get at it later, if you haven't already put it in your laptop, you need to pay him like $13 a month. But if for $13, if I only had $13, I would join, but I don't because I only have $45 left to live into mid-January, and my welcome is going to wear out here sometime in the early beginning of January. So for about 2 weeks, I'll have no money and no place to stay. And my car is creaking along, one little wrong move and I won't have a car. But am I worried? No, because I'm a lucky bastard and I am doing what Love's Co-Creation wants me to do, right? So, anyway. It's just like today. I wanted to meet with this one guy. He didn't show up because of whatever, but I'm not going to hold it against him. I'm going to meet him again later on in the week. All fine, right? But, buddy, I can relate to your technical things because I was in this restaurant. My phone wouldn't work. I could get on the line, but I couldn't use it to communicate. It was amazing. I could look at the internet, but I couldn't use it to communicate. Couldn't, email, couldn't, message, couldn't do anything, right? I had to walk. It was raining. I open the door, it starts to rain. I close the door, it stops raining. Open the door, it starts to rain. Close the door, it stops raining. Meaning the powers that, Love's Co-Creation wanted me to be there because I ran it to 6 other people, right? And these people all had new people for me to meet. And so I had this document. I spent the last $57 I had on making copies of this because it's a very strong, powerful process. And I knew people, if they were to read it and to act upon the lessons I have in it, they could change a lot of suffering in their life. So this guy who I wanted, he's a corporate guy, and I knew this would do good by him because I've done other things for him and his corporation. And he, I've known him 10 years. So he kind of, Al is, I remember being he introduced me to this corporate board. And instead of getting dressed up, I was at a point when I didn't really have a place to keep my suit. And so I looked like this. And he brought me in, he looked at me, and he said, well, this will work. And so, I did my thing with them, and it worked, right? So he knows my abilities. But he, for some reason, didn't show up, right? And I'm not going to question it or care. We'll see each other in a day or two. Not a problem. But I had a copy of this with me to give him. And there was a young lady who was working at the restaurant that I was supposed to meet him at. And she was, I could tell just by her aura, her energy. And so she's working and she's trying to be a, server and be nice to people. But, she would turn and just, almost start to break into tears. And then she came over to give me water. And I said, so I want you to do something. And she goes, what? I said, why don't you put your hand up? Let me reach your palm. So she did. And I read it and she burst out into tears. I said, no, sit down. And I said, here, take this napkin. I put it in the thing of cold water, and I said, put it around your neck and tie it. Right? You got long hair, no one's going to see it. And it like that stopped her from crying. She goes, I feel so much better. I said, yeah, your temperature. It's like you got this temperature going on. It's not from an infection. Well, it's not from a bacteriological infection. It's from a spiritual and emotional infection. Yeah. But, buddy, when nothing works, you have to let go and let what's supposed to happen happen. And that's what I'm talking to about now. I'm supposed to do all this other stuff, and I met all the people I really needed to meet. So I, had her put the little neckerchief all with cold water, and she calmed right down, and she felt so much better. She goes, I got a break. I'm going to take it right now. And can I sit here and talk to you? I said, sure. Because this restaurant, the guy who owns it, again, I've helped him. So there's a little nook in this restaurant that they have put, and it's like reserved only for Al. And it's got a big table. It's got a bunch of chairs around it, and it has a lounge chair. I mean, really loungy chair. I mean, just, oh, yeah, I can sit in this for hours. And he lets me sit there for hours. It opens at 11 and closes at 4, and they close from 4 to 6. And I could even stay there in the dark. They turn all the lights up between 4 and 6, and people run around and do errands, and the cook guys change for dinner. But anyway, so she's talking, and I give her a copy of it. I have 2 copies, of this one and the other one. And I gave it to her, and I said, read this. I'm going to read it out loud to you while you're reading. And she's reading, and she's like, ah, ah. And I said, now I want you to read a paragraph a night and get yourself a notebook, those composition books. Get you one of those at the Dollar Tree. And you read out, that one paragraph, and then write how it affects you. Put the date, right? Next night, read the next, and the next, and the next. It's only 15 pages, in about half a month, you'll read the whole thing. If you want to read more than one paragraph, go ahead. So anyway, she was like, it changed her, her day, at least, not, see what happens with her life. Because I said, so how long have you been working here? Oh, about 4 months. I said, you like the job? You're going to stay? She said, oh, yes. I said, well, okay, I'll check in with you, see how you're doing. So that's kind of how it was today. And so the other 5 people who came in, there was this priest I knew, a guy who works for FARC, which he's a judge for FARC. FARC is the guys who administer the transportation of energy. And so I've known him a long time because I've been around a number like oil pipelines and nuclear power plants and transmission lines. And these are things I go and look at, whether it's, if it's being done appropriately or not, and if it's not, and this guy is a good judge, I can tell him things, and instead of him being bought off by the corporations, he actually does what the law says he's supposed to be doing. So he likes the fact that I do what I do. And so I've got an inside voice there. I think he's retired because he was like, in overalls. I said, what are you doing in overalls? He goes, I'm being comfy. And I said, so don't you have to work? He goes, well, I'm like you. I don't work all the time, just when they need me. I said, well, nobody seems to need me that much. He goes, yeah, I know. I've heard that you're like the lone gunman. I do all the things I do when I used to get paid, but now I just do them for love's co-creation. And he was saying, boy, I wish I could do that. I said, yeah, you got some money in the bank. You got more in the bank than me. You got that nice farm, and your kids are grown up. You got no expenses. You got that rich girlfriend. You're not supposed to know about that, he says. Anyway, so back to my artist friend. So he's pretty neurotic. It's getting in the way of his making it big. I want him to be happy. I want him, he's a really good artist. I want his art to be seen. And so his girlfriend takes him to Est because he's tried to shrink. He's tried everything. He's tried to change his diet, blah, blah, blah. And so he goes to Est, and it actually freaking works. He's like more assured of himself, less freaked out, less neurotic, less, he's like, well, this I got to check this out. So he part of their little process is, it X amount of weeks. You pay 5, 6 grand to go to 5 or 6 weeks, and you know, um, at the end you graduate. And when you graduate, you're supposed to bring 5 people. Like somebody in your mom, dad, your brothers, sisters, friends, and what they're doing is hooking for more clientele because best thing to sell this thing is, hey, look at this crazy motherfucker. Excuse me, this crazy dude that's been in your family for all these, and here's finally something that works. All the shrinks, all the drugs, all the screaming and shouting, and here's this thing works, right? Your boy, your girl is least. You can live with them. Who knows if it's cured, but they're acting quote unquote normal. So this is my friend. He says, "Can you come to my graduation?" I said, "Sure, I'll come to your graduation, no problem." Because his family wouldn't, right? His girlfriend, me, and another friend of ours, Dave, he went along. And Dave was a great sculptor, and he taught at the new school. So anyway, we go to this, and it's at the Penta Hotel. Penta Hotel is on, I think, 8th Avenue or 7th Avenue, one that goes downtown, 7th Avenue. And it's right across from Penn Station, right across from Madison Square Garden. It's a big, gigantic hotel. It has a ballroom that easily fits around 20,000. They have all these mezzanines, right? So you fit a lot of people in there. Well, they didn't, they probably had 5,000 in there, right, on the main floor. And they had the stage, and the guys who were in the class are graduating, so they go up and get their little diploma. And anyway, so Werner is the guy who's invented this, Werner Erhard, right? And so he gives his, congratulations speech to everyone who's done so well. They're getting their diploma, right? So they do that, and then they all go back, and then he gives another little speech. It's like a hook. He goes, "Now everyone here knows somebody who's just graduated. You know how miserable they were and how sick they were, and blah 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 blah. And probably you are the problem. You caused it. So you're as sick as they were. You just pretend better. Now you must be miserable." And he goes on and on, hits all the buttons, and people are sniffling and crying and looking down. And I'm like looking straight at this guy going, this guy is a snake oil salesman of the first degree. So he's hooking for more clientele, right? And so he does this, hypnagogic little snap of the fingers and hypnotizes everybody, right? And because hypnotism is all you have to do is hook the person emotionally, get them to just somewhat relive whatever trauma that causes them to be neurotic, crazy, or all those other little terms. And then you got them, right? And then you hypnagogic experiences when you unmask the trauma and then you relax it. And people go, first they're like, really, Denver? And then, and that's what the Nuremberg rallies, when Adolf would step out on stage, Andy, well, what's her name? The movie theater lady who did all of Adolf's aesthetics. They wanted to hang her, but she, Richtenstall, Lenny Richtenstall. Anyway, great filmmaker. You should see go on YouTube and look at the Nuremberg rallies where Adolf and what they say. Okay, the Fuhrer is going to speak at 11, right? So people will line up to go in this big place they can stick 40,000 people into, not sit down, stand. And everything's made out of marble. It's like, again, this woman designed everything. And so it's like a microwave oven. Everyone's standing there, and the sun rises. It's like hotter than hot in there, and they don't move. And in the speaker system, right? They have a low frequency hum that you can barely hear, but it's like moving your organs. And then a really super duper high pitched thing that's like worse than fingernails on blackboards, but you can't hear it. But you're going, And they keep the poor people there until sunset, like 8 hours of like being baked by the sun in a microwave oven and, excruciatingly tortured by these two sound ranges. And then all of a sudden, the sun is setting, and there's this marble is behind stage, and the long red swastikas with the white and the black is there. And the sun shoots through this crack, and out steps the Fuhrer, and the sun at a certain level, and it's at his back, and his body throws a shadow across the people. And like on the edge of the stage, it's like not a big shadow, but as it goes out into the audience, it gets bigger and bigger, and it covers the whole friggin' audience. Adolf's shadow. And he comes out there and speaks for, half an hour, however long he talks. But what happens was people like just about to die from this, toxic noise coming over the sound system. As soon as he steps out from behind the ground and his shadow shoots across the audience, they hit a switch that knocks that off, and everyone basically has an orgasm because they've been like, and then it goes away, and and that's what putting someone in a hypnagogic state is, and that's what they did to these people. And at the EST meeting, right? And anyway, so he's going on and on about how everyone should sign up, and if they don't, they are losers and just the worst human being, and you'll regret it for the rest of your life. And there's like 5,000 people there, and they're all like, you could hear a pin drop. And as soon as he shuts up and you can hear a pin drop, and there are these like metal, folding chairs. So I get up and just kind of drag my chair a little bit. So that's the big, noise of the fingernail scratching. And I drop the chair and it makes a crashing sound. And I just walk out. And the guy goes, now there's a loser. There's a loser. He's doing his best to like really make it like hurt on the inside. And I turn around with a smile on my face and say, really? You can't even get me stay here. Who's and I use the expletive, who's the frackin' loser? You are. I turn around and walk out. And the entrance into this thing is like on a mezzanine from the lobby. So I come out of that and I come down this long staircase that curls into the lobby, and I'm walking towards the door, and this guy comes flying out of a hallway. I mean, running full tilt, and slides across the lobby and stops right in front of me. Goes, how did you do that? I said, how did I break your hypnagogic state? Yeah. How did you do? And then he stopped. He said, you knew I was. I said, of course. Look at all those people's, dumb stares. They weren't there. You're just a snake oil salesman. Yeah, but it works. It really works. I don't know how it works, but it works. You must know about this. I said, yeah, I know about it. I have been studying at mystery. You're in a mystery. What mystery school? I said, if it's a mystery, why would I tell you? Because I need to hire you. I said, listen, yeah, okay. How much you going to pay me? Oh, no, you can take all my classes for free. I said, I don't want to take your classes for free. I would work for you because it would be interesting, but I want to get paid. And he said, okay, I'll pay you, but don't tell anyone. So I worked for him for 6 months. And he was really an interesting guy because he had a lot, he had uncovered a lot of stuff from where he grew up, from people he grew up around. He was really, really, really interesting guy. And so, and that was only the first, I've worked for other folks like that because I'm interested, and I like to see how they're doing things. And if they are, my 3 rules, doctor, do no harm, don't get involved without a good exit strategy. And 3, don't get involved unless you're going to learn something. So all of these different characters have been folks I kind of, that's how I went into them, see if they're doing any harm. If they're doing any harm, I'm going to tell them that they're doing harm. But in actuality, they weren't. you know. I mean, the only harm was that they were, you know, unhooking people of many thousands of dollars. But if it helped, like it did to my friend, and he had the money, it's a lot better than giving some shrink. I mean, I used to work in a shrink shop, right? And I was the guy who would do things. So these shrinks would charge the rich people lots of money, but to stay on the good side of the state, they would do a lot of ad hoc stuff for poor people and for the courts and jails. And that's the work I would do, because they surely didn't want to do that. But once they saw how well I worked with people, they said, we have some clients, that probably could use you. So I did, but I would get them healthy and out the door within a matter of weeks. And they go, no, 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 you can't do that. These people are rich and neurotic, and we can hook them for the next 30 years. I want that. I want my kids to go to college. I want that house, on the ocean. I want that Jaguar. Now, that isn't really the Hippocratic Oath right there, right? So that's why I would work with these guys, because I would go, well, that's not quite, you know, cricket. And that's why I never, why I quit that business, because that's what it is. It's a business. So, and I've been around many what I call hokey mystics. There was I had a girlfriend in Cornell, no Ithaca, no Asheville, North Carolina. That's where it was in the good old days when nobody was there, and she hooked up to every new age, and I was like before the new age. I was part of the Theosophical Society and part of the Bowl Society and a part of a lot of esoteric occult societies. And I was allowed to be there because I was a scholar and not a follower. And most of the people who were running the place were friends of my mentors, Madame Olga Kluver. That lady was like a time traveling dwarf. She had been around forever, knew everybody, right? And she took a Shannon to me, and my mentor, Grandpa Stoll, was a good friend of hers. I used to walk to work. I walked down Lexington from 69th, where my parents lived, and I'd go by Hunter and the Council on Foreign Relations, and I'd walk by, and right around 30-something Street was she had a curiosity shop. And Lexington Avenue in those days was like being back in old Europe. There were all these really beautiful Victorian and 19th century buildings that probably weren't any taller than 4 or 5 stories, and they were, wood and stone and really beautiful, really art pieces. And she owned a building right in the middle. I think she owned her own block, but her curiosity shop was in the middle. There was a store on a corner, a tea shop that was quite nice, and I don't even know what maybe a laundromat or something. But hers was, and it had this window that was curved, so there were no reflections. So you looked like you could walk right into her place, but there was a window there, right? And she had a revolving door that was quite interesting, in that you could go into it, but if she didn't want you in there, it just kept going around and pushed you outside. I mean, there's no, if she didn't like hit a button or think something or say the magic word, you weren't coming into her place, And like I said, she knew everyone. I mean, she was a person who took me down to it's a really, really great bookstore, and it's very, very old and very, very magical. What's it called? It'll pop into my mind. Oldest bookstore in the United, reach real old stuff. Antiquarian. Oh, it's right on the tip of my. It's not Jaegers. It's not Zagers. It's. It'll pop into my head. Anyway, she took me there, and she took me to a number of libraries, which were like, just along this road or that street or in this, and there'd be a stone wall there, and she would just do this, and we'd walk into that library or that secret society. I mean, they had no signs out front, no real doors. It was the good old days. And so when I was living in Asheville, this girlfriend of mine who was a shrink, with every new craze, it would come along. And she loved the fact that, she went into my apartment and saw all these old books I had. Where'd you get this book? Where'd you get a book? What's this mean? What's that mean? She's so much, and that's why she became a shrink. But she really became a shrink for the status, And her daddy was a shrink. So, oh, anyway, so we were boyfriend and girlfriend, and she loved the fact that she had this thing, and doctors have it too, where they work on an illness and they get it. I think it's called hypochondriacs. That's for the medical part, but shrinks have the same thing. They call it different thing though. And so she would get all these things all the time, and and it really screwed her up because she couldn't work, she couldn't have a practice. She didn't do things she said she would do, and people got tired of that about her. But I knew a friend who said, "You need to meet this woman, and she needs your help." So I did, and I got her out of her house. She had agoraphobia, but she didn't have agoraphobia. Please, she was just pretending to have agoraphobia. So got her out, and then we had a lot of fun. A lot of dancing, a lot of me cooking her dinner, a lot of intimacy, of camping, hiking. Yes, she needed, to move the blood around. She'd been sitting too long, right? Anyway, so she had her place, I had my place. And, she would come, and she didn't mind that she would just come without asking and just knock on my door and like, can we, can I come, like, I'm going to sleep in your bed, I didn't have any girlfriends. She was my only girlfriend. So that didn't, wasn't like I was going to have somebody else in my bed. So I said, sure. Every night, every time she did that, I didn't get mad. Sure. I could have been doing something else, been nice if she thought about my own, no, she had that itch. So she showed up anyway. So it was okay. She was very sweet, very attractive, very, very flexible, very, fluid, very, all of those good things you want in a fun partner. Recent upload. Yeah, exactly. Research did a letter which I saw years ago. There are many letters out there, and the problem with all these, what are known as time capsules, is you don't know who really wrote them. But it's a letter from a general talking to Ike about, what he made that speech. It was really great. He made this little speech about the military-industrial complex, um, like hours before Kennedy was sworn in. Right? It was like his last. He wanted to be able to go out on a golf course and relax and not have to worry about anything. So he said something so no one was going to take a pot shot at him, which they could have because he was part of a lot of stuff that if he spilled the beans, they would have taken him out. It's a good, you just have to look at what they did to Lincoln and what they did to Kennedy, right? And those are the two. What the hidden hand goes, you better do what we say or else you'll end up like these guys. So, um, so my girlfriend had this predilection towards, she wouldn't do the work herself. She wanted to find someone who would fix her. Now, she thought I would fix her, with food and sex and fun. And that I was, she goes, you're a far better shrink than I am. Why don't you practice? I said, because I hate the institution. I would be quite a hypocrite. Now, I'll be anybody's friend and listen, but I'm not going to charge money. And pretty much all of my teachers, all my great mentors, they've all said, you can't charge for this, right? So that's why I was an electrician for 50 years. Because, boy, I could charge for that. Somebody wants their lights to go on by X time and have it work, they'll pay you anything. Most people, why being an electrician so great is everybody needs the electricity. Everyone needs to hit that switch and have the light bulb go on, but they don't have a clue how it works, and they're scared of it because every time they screw with it, it blows up or gives them a shock. So it's like I liked it. It's very magical. It's very theatrical, and I was a magical theatrical electrician, right? And I could fix anything, right? Grandpa Stahl really taught me the right way to work. And I can work on anything from the most uber, I worked on nuclear power plants and things at national laboratories that go bump in the night. And, the light, I don't know how many times people called me up when I had a shop. Oh, my lights don't work. So to check the light bulb. Oh, the light, is there a switch on the light bulb? To turn the switch. Oh, my lights. I said, if I show up, you need, when do you want me? Oh, can you come now? Okay. I can come now. I'm not doing anything. But you have to go right away to the bank and get 2 Benjamins. 2 Benjamins? You mean $200? That's right, $200. You want me there now? $200. Okay. And I said, it's probably just the only thing I'm going to bring with me is a bag of light bulbs. And I'd have my little bag of tricks, what I called it. Whatever it takes to fix something, I'd have it in a little teeny bag. And so 98% of the times I would show up and I go, you got the 2 Benjamins? Put them in my hand. I put them in my hand. I crinkle them up. Yep, they look like Benjamins. I stick them in my pocket. Show me the light. This light doesn't work. I go, see if it's plugged in, see if it's a fixture, and then if it had a switch, I'd click the switch, and then I would, screw in a light bulb. 98% of the time, it was just a light bulb that blown out. And I told them all the things to check before I'd show up, and I say, you want me there? 2 Benjamins, and they would go, but it was only, give me that. No, I said, next time you'll check the friggin' light bulb. This is a very valuable lesson to you. Oh, okay. Anyway, this woman who I was dating was kind of like that. She thought I could fix anything, right? And didn't want to pay the 2 Benjamins. So anyway, she would, and she just went from one thing to the next and always wanted me to, do the event, right? So she started getting these videotapes from Gangaji, who is an Indian master, is going to bring peace to earth. She's better than Jesus Christ, better than Vishnu, better than Buddha. I said, okay. So I would watch, and all her girlfriends would get together, and, she would say, oh, come watch it with us. So I'd watch one of them. And it was like the same old same, right? Talking about, I can heal you. All you have to do is my technique. And, very much like Werner, right? So oh, that's nice. So anyway, she's really getting into it deep. She's a total novitiate, and she's buying the books, and the tapes cost $39.99. And, and this is 90, right? When was it, 90? 92. Anyway, so Asheville was a great town at that time. I got there in 91. From 91 until 96, it was great. There was no one there except really interesting artists, right? And the first I cruised in that town, the first place I lived in was a chicken coop in North Asheville, and there were 60 other. It was like a commune. It was great. And then I found a great apartment right next to the big Nazi hotel there. The Grove Park Inn, and they call it something different now. More Nazis own it now, and so it was a beautiful. I had 2-bedroom, apartment with its own dining room, living room, kitchen, really nice bathroom with a deep bathtub, washer dryer downstairs, 2-car. I had 2 parking spots in the garage. Each apartment had 2 spots, and the heat and electricity and gas were paid for. So for $300 a month, 2 bedroom, gas, electric, and heat and parking. It was unbelievable, right? And it was just I could walk to the university I was working at. So I basically, that was my spot. So I had really good connections. There were great artists there. We could do art anywhere we wanted on the street. There were a bunch of abandoned buildings downtown. I had a 5,000 square foot um, loft downtown for $50 a month. We had wild parties there, and so uh, somewhere in my truck I have some pictures of those days. And at the school, UNCA was a great university. It was a teachers' college. It actually started out as an herbal college. It was that part of the United States up in those Blue Ridge Mountains along that ridge there. The plant diversity was amazing. There were more cures for every disease than in the rainforests, right? And there was a guy who picked them and grew them and turned, Asheville was well known as a herbalist center in the latter part of the 19th century, the 1890s and the early O's, and up until about the guy died in 1938, 40. And he gave everything to the city with you can have my properties, but you can't sell them you have to continue UNCA was his school, and they have a arboretum down below with a few trees, but that whole hill up behind the school had thousands of medicinal herbs, right? And in the late 90s, the school bulldozed everything down and put condos up there. Anyway, so my girlfriend, right, she's getting into Gangaji. And so there was a guy named Howard Hanger who was like, the Hugh Hefner he had a Protestant or Methodist church downtown. And it was just this big old, warehousey kind of building. But he had his church down there. But it was right downtown off of Wall Street, And Wall Street was, there were a lot of New Yorkers in Asheville in the 20s. So there's downtown, the center, Hayward Street, Wall Street, Lexington. They were copies of New York City. And so when I was there in the early 90s, it was the parish up the South up until the 20s. And then they borrowed all this money to, put in sewers and water lines and, level the city because it was in a mountain range. So, and they put a tunnel through the mountain so people could get from one side of the city to the other. And they did a whole bunch of things. And then the Depression came and they couldn't pay off anybody. And they did not finish paying off their Depression debt until 1996, right? So from 29 to 96, they didn't do anything. Nobody would lend them a nickel. It was like that whole city was in amber, and that's why it's kind of a cool place, because all that old stuff was still left there. They didn't rip it down to put up a fiberglass mall or something. So now forget about it. It's a whorehouse. But in those scant 8 years, because of the school, so the head of the music department was Bob Moog, the inventor of electronic music. The guy who's head of psychology, he was a very, 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 I forget his name, but he was, his whole thing was about understanding the internalized angst that you have, and not through all of the other different disciplines. And he was all about getting it done. That's why I liked him. He was in my school. Get straight to the meat of the matter, find out what it is, clean it up, get you out the door, right? And every other department was the guy who was the head of the art department. He was a well-known New York City, I knew him in the 60s. His name kind of escapes me. But every department, there was somebody who was really amazing. So all of those amazing teachers drew amazing students who were not your average go there, drink beer, get a degree, get a job, No, these were all kids who went to that school because they could have gone to any school, but they wanted to study with Bob Moog or this guy or that guy or this girl or that girl. And so for that 8 years or so, that school was freaking amazing. So I loved community, and it was a great community. And the artist community that was there was great. And the mountain community was great. And everybody and his brother was great. How could you? How could I what? Uber Gruber. Sometimes, buddy, you're too deep for me. Is Bob gonna crash with you next? Maybe. Where are you, Fish? Is it warm? I'm in West Virginia right now. So it's 8 o'clock. I've been at it. Oh, look at that. 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds. I love it when that happens. I have no idea where I'm going next. Whoever wants to have me come visit you, I'll be there. Especially if you got a phone I can call, because I got very limited money, and if I commit to go in a certain direction, I have to at least know where I'm going and know there's going to be a place for me to land. Oh, I'm kind of maybe over here. I don't have a phone. I don't know. Can't really talk to me anyway. I can't quite do that. These people I'm staying with, I knew where they were. They invited me. They wanted me to look after their farm when they went away for a week or two, which I did, and I fixed everything. And they came back, and the place was like, wow, you cleaned it up. You cleaned our mess up. You fixed everything. Oh, this is so great. And I keep doing it, keep washing the dishes, vacuuming the floor, taking care of this and that. And they're getting a little antsy because it's the mirror to their life. Meaning, if I can do it, I don't even live here. Maybe they should do it, But they're old friends, and they're good. And we're just doing it because I love them. And they're giving me, so look at that. That's kind of where I'm sleeping, down here, surrounded by garbage and coal bits, but it's warm. Sleep right next to the boiler. Message retracted. Well, Fish, don't do anything you don't really want. These people wanted me here, so I came. And the universe always takes care of me. I got a week or so, maybe longer, to find, something else. Just like today, I was supposed to meet up with this guy. He never showed, but these other 4 people did, and it was much better than I hanged with those. I mean, that one girl, I gave a copy of the thing I was reading you, how to deal with your, breaking habitual actions by relaxation. Well, this girl needed to be relaxed. Anyway, back to my story about, mystic masters who charge you money to learn something that all I have to do is, I've done more than 1,000 shows. Just go back and look at a few, and you go to any one of those guided meditations. That's as good as anything you're going to get. I'm giving it to you for free. Keep telling you guys, you need to start downloading these things, right? Putting them on thumb drives, on your CD-ROMs, on your hard drive, because who knows what YouTube's going to do, right? Because they've been giving me a hard time about, and I've signed every freaking, they keep changing the story. I signed that thing, by January 10th, you better sign this or you're not, we're going to take your stuff down. Well, I did. Who cares, As long as they, they tried to say, oh, we're going to make you famous and rich. Just let us own what you say and let us, tell you the content to say it. I said, I don't think so. And that's when they started giving me a hard time. Hey, Fish, I'm not asking you anything, kiddo. You want me there? And you tell me where you are, I'll come. Or anybody else, not just Fish, especially anybody down in Florida. Boy, let me go someplace warm. Ugh. So back to my shrinky girlfriend, who was like really taking the hook on the spiritual path, right? And it was no spiritual pass. For 1995, you'll get this. So she gets enough of her girlfriends and other friends to start to worship this Gangaji, right? And so she goes, "Listen, you're really friends with the guy who has the church downtown. Can you let him use?" I said, "Yeah, I'll go talk to him." So I go to him, and I said, "Hey, Howard, my friend, my girlfriend wants to bring this gun. Who's this Gangaji?" And I had a videotape, and I slung it in his. And he was like the Hugh Hefner of religion. He had this really beautiful old Victorian house that half of it burnt down, and half, that part that burned down was crisped. The other half didn't even have smoke damage. It was beautiful still. And so the roof of the whole structure was still there, and the walls were still there, but this one part of the floor, the like first floor down to the basement, was like crisp. The other two floors not so bad, right? And the rest of the house not even, right? So he didn't fix it. He like cleaned everything up that wasn't really crisped, and he left the crisp section, and he turned it into a nightclub in the basement that kind of got flooded out, and there was a side of the basement that kind of, the water kind of went out and kind of dug a big hole. So he got a guy in there with a gunite machine, a thing that shoots concrete, and made a swimming pool. So it had a grotto. So you came down this big stairs from the second floor into this place, and it was like hell on earth. I mean, just burned out, crisp, just destroyed, and a grotto. And all around the grotto was, maybe 900 square feet of flat concrete. So it was a nice dance floor. And it had a bar that was on the third floor. It was like the men's where the guys went and played billiards, and it kind of crashed through the floor, but it didn't get destroyed. So he kind of propped it up, so it was semi, straight, and that was the bar. And so we had some wild parties in that place. So anyway, Howard was the Hugh Hefner of, Protestant religion. In Georgia. Oh, well, that's so how far Georgia, Dragon, are you? Yeah, we could do something close to that. Let's see what. So what? Well, Dragon, again, get yourself a phone so we can talk. Much better to get on the same. I mean, my little experience today with the guy who was supposed to meet with me, we were doing, we could barely, not quite communicate. So, I need to hear from you. So get a phone, Dragon. You can go, into any drugstore, any 7-Eleven, and buy a burner for like 10, $20. And, you can every month buy time for it. That's something you can afford. And, go to and anybody who wants to talk to me, go to the Dude Awake 42 and put down your phone number and a number of you have. And I have called you right up. I can only talk to people in America. You got other foreign phones. My phone don't do it. Just over the border. Yep. Anyway, so Howard said, "Sure, come on in." So we went in there, and the girls were, "Oh, it's so dirty and dank. Oh, we need to paint this. Can we paint your?" And Howard said, "Sure, go ahead, paint it. Clean it up, do whatever you want." So he got a total rehab of this place, right? So they painted it really a beautiful peach color, and because he never touched it. It was a drab, yellowy kind of institutional, look like urine kind of paint job. And they cleaned up all the crap that was dank and stinky, and they really did a great job. And they built a stage, a couple steps up, and so he could do his religious. I mean, they really fixed it up nice for him. So they, oh wow, you guys are doing great. Had me put lights in, Anyway, so they got it all protected, and they had a green room in the back, before you come out on stage. So they had that, and they got a nice couch and carpet and chairs and you know pots with flowers and a little kitchen back there and a coffee machine and tea and all kinds of yummy things ready for their goddess to. So anyway, so I'm going to this thing, that my girlfriend's the head, Gangaji Novitiate who got all these people hooked on this girl, and the only reason they showed up because they had a good 300 people who were like paying 35, 39 every 2 weeks to get a new tape from Gangaji. They were probably making a couple of grand just from Asheville, maybe 10 grand, right? So, and I think they paid her to show up too, and she was going to someplace, nearby. So, um, anyway, so the however we do it, Dragons, good by me, buddy. So the and we'll talk on just email me and we'll talk on that. So anyway, so the day comes and everyone's sitting there and everyone's like holding their breath, and the limo shows up and she walks through the door and she walks up and she's got this diaphanous gold gown on and she's got her entourage of guys in black suits, and I'm sure they're packing and they got little things in their ear and they're talking into their sleeve, and she's got a couple of women as her entourage, and they walk in, and the guys in the suits stand at the sides, right at the steps of the stage. And, we're all sitting on cushions. We're not sitting on chairs. We're all sitting on. We're sitting on their cushions, and everyone's like basking in her glow. And I'm looking up at her, and she's looking around at the audience, and her view stops at me. And she looks at me, and looks at me, and goes, "Ow, ow, what are you doing here?" And I go, Tammy, is that you? Ow! And she runs down the steps and kind of jumps in my arms and hugs and kisses me and picks me up. And she's been told there's, a room off to the side where she can freshen up and have something to drink, And she, drags me over into this room and turns around. "I'll be right back," to the audience, right? And we go in there, and I go, "Tammy." And who is Tammy? Tammy, who is Gangaji? Who is Tammy? Tammy is a girl I knew from West Virginia, and she worked in a truck stop outside of Morgantown. And I used to have a radio show in New York City, and I went to a conference on radio. I was on WBAI, and I came between Steve Post and Bob Fast. I was late at night, and you think I'm crazy on this thing? Boy, I had loads of fun on that. And WBAI is a Pacifica radio station. There's 4 stations, and you can almost do anything on it. And they threw me off because, well, that's a whole nother story that would take hours, so I won't go there. But I met this girl at this conference, and she was on the radio in Morgantown. And we kind of sparked it off. And she loved the fact that I lived in New York City and she could come, I had a really nice place in New York City that she could come and crash at and have a good time. And I worked in the rock and roll industry, so she could go listen to all these great musicians and hang out with them. So she loved me, but we definitely sparked it off. And so what I would do is most of the time she couldn't get away from work. So at least twice a month, I would drive all the way from New York City to Morgantown, West Virginia. And, and I would leave, like at 6 p.m. and drive because I was on during the week. I didn't have a show Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So I would leave Friday at 6 and drive all the way to Morgantown and kind of pull in Morgantown about 6, 7 in the morning. And she would play Joni Mitchell's Morning Morgantown nonstop, starting at about 6 a.m., right? And I would like follow the beam into Morgantown. But just, inside of the Virginia, I forgot, was it 60 or 66 or some highway? I could go up the New York Thruway and jump onto 81 and then jump onto this other highway and go into Morgantown. Forgot what number it was. But anyway, right at that place where I went from one interstate to the next, there was this big, gigantic truck stop. They had pretty good food. And right about that time, around, 3 or 4 in the morning when I hit that place, and I was about an hour and a half from there to Morgantown, I'd stop in there, get some coffee and whatever they were having and eat. And there was this waitress, Tammy, truck stop waitress. And she was quite the interesting girl. She was not like anybody else there. And she was sweet and nice to everybody. She didn't have an attitude, but she had this amazing way to deflect, unwanted anything. And I didn't throw anything unwanted her way. But, the first time I met her, I said, "Oh, let me read your palm." I did. And she was like, "Wow, that's great. I'm really interested in this stuff." So she came the first time I met her, I read her palm, and then she ran off into her locker, came back with a copy of Kerchief's book. And, so I was like, wow. So anyway, 30 something years later, and there I am in Asheville, North Carolina, or 26 or whatever. And she goes, "I can't believe you're here in this little town." I said, "Yeah, not only that, my girlfriend is the one who got you here." "Oh, you're really?" And I said, yep. And so we talk about, she told me her whole story, how she went from being a waitress in a truck stop in Morgantown to being a goddess. And she said, "Well, my interest, I met a guy, and he was a truck driver, and he was really also a minister and a mystic, and and he was really knowledgeable about everything, Vedic. And so we hooked up, and we ended up going to India. And when we were at an ashram, and I studied with a master, and his name was also kind of like Gangaji, but not quite. It was like the male version. And this guy kind of fell in love with Tammy and told her that, she was the twin flame of him, but he was so old he couldn't get it up. So he was just going to take her into the higher echelons of, Vedic experience, which he did. And she responded quite nicely. And then someone picked up on her and turned her into the product and brought her back to America. And that's usually the case of most mystic masters, because the people who I met, I've met Jesus a couple of times, and they don't really charge $19.95. It's like me. I don't charge anything. I give you a lot of stuff. Now, on certain elements, sometimes it's good to charge because people don't take it seriously unless they're spending some serious money, right? And when I had a clinic, a healing clinic, in the early 70s down in Wall Street area on Pearl Street, I told you the story where I was living up on up in the bell tower, and the ground floor was off-track betting. Second floor, the guy sold marijuana. Third floor, they sold cocaine. Fourth floor, heroin. Me up at the top, right? And the guy who owned the building I worked for, and that's how I had that place, because this was Edison's, workshop that he where he had his first power thing, and so they turned it into this other thing, and. Yeah, so Dragon, are you a schooled mixologist? I'll be Googling a lot of it. Anyway, Tammy and I spoke for a good hour and a half, right? Of old times and stories, and we tasted all the goodies that they had left. And then her boys in the black suits knocked on the door and said, we have to go now because we have to get the jet uh, out of Asheville Airport to go to Colorado. And I said, Colorado? I thought you were going to Nashville. She goes, no, we changed. These people are going to pay us more money. And, in that whole thing, I said to Tammy, so, Tammy, don't you feel bad about just being, snake oil salesman? She goes, well, I try to do the best I can for these folks, make them feel better. And I have nothing to do with the business. That's one of the things I said. I want to know nothing. Those guys in the suits do everything. They make the schedules, they do everything. I just go and say a few words and smile and give them blessings and go on to the next, right? So that was Tammy, and I just told you a story about Mr. Earhart, right? Werner and Tammy, and I could tell you about 10 others, right? And some are really good. Some, have a lot of knowledge in there, right? But you could get it off of Google, or just look at me. I mean, the majority of things, all you have to do to find your center is to breathe and illuminate yourself with the prana and the chi. That's all you got to do, It's nothing secretive. Now, the other teachings, now that's a whole different thing. The mystery schools, whole different thing. And I've never, ever seen any of these folks who, got their YouTube page or whatever going on selling their spiritual mojo. Now, there are some pretty good, people who do your horoscope, and there's some pretty good people who read your cards. Now, those are skills. Okay, it's like being an electrician. That's a skill. I have a lot of friends who are really talented at that, and not all of them, are the lucky bastard I am. Not all of them have the luck to not have to charge people money, right? And, the people give it to them. It's not like they're stealing it, but the spiritual side's a little different, If you're reading someone's cards or reading someone's horoscope, that's a talent. It's a skill. It's a trade, if you want to call it that. So that's fine. Those guys want to, but all the things that you could almost, in my shamanic bag of tricks, I've been taught those by masters who basically said, listen, I normally don't teach people this, but you're a lucky bastard. I can trust you. And you're not going to, people can give you a gift. And that's why I put that PayPal channel up there. You can give me a gift. And some of you have, and I thank you for that. But like I said, I got $43 to last me until the mid of January. So, let's see what you guys have been saying here. So who are the 8 who are there? There were 10 at one moment. So everyone here, Fish, did I send you anything interesting on the email? Anybody who wants any of the stuff that I've been perusing, and I will send it to you, send a little message to the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And then you're there on my little book of who talks to me on the Gmail. And when I find an interesting thing and I can forward it, I will. And I have to Buddy and a few others, right? Hey guys, missed who he's talking about. This is Kevin Trudeau, a Global Information Network. I'm not so, I've seen that. Yeah, Adolf was a piece of work, but again, he was just a poster boy. He was not the prime mover of anything. And one reason why he is exactly what Buddy called him, a naughty, twisted psychopath, he was made into that. And most of these people are, There isn't a politician who isn't manufactured. Is held for review. Uh, 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 Fish, you're in Nashville, aren't you? Yeah, send me a video through email, Dragon. Yep, sounds like a plan. Uh, let's see. So, did any of you get the few paragraphs I read from my little treatise here? I'll read you a little bit more. Main motivation of all our soul suffering is our flawed navigation through the fabricated sea of negativity, irrelevant smells, tastes, and touches, making small, malevolent course corrections through our lives of separation and distraction from our Creator's reason for our existence, to be part of its unconditional love and forgiveness. What do you guys think of that? Want me to read that over again? The main motivation of our soul's suffering, meaning why we suffer, is our flawed navigation through the fabricated sea of negatively irrelevant smells, tastes, and touches, making small, malevolent course corrections through our lives of separation and distraction from our Creator's reason for our existence, to be part of its unconditional love and forgiveness. See, that's the only reason we're here, to be part of love's co-creation, right? All the rest is an irrelevant distraction, right? The thing is not to be distracted by it. Now, it's kind of tough. I know I have been distracted many a time, and I know better. We need to learn to listen to the words of love that our Creator is unconditionally speaking passionately within our superconscious mind. If we would only listen on our inside primal aboriginal self and trust the direct channel of our Creator's unconditional love, life and our world transform, and our world would transform all around us in one breath, right? So come on, gang. Breathe in. Let's go talk to God. Breathe in that 20%. Quiet down your conscious mind. You don't really need any more stories from me. Let the prana flow through you. Breathe it in. Expand you. Whether you're breathing that 20% in, you're quieting the squirrel in the cage of your mind. You're opening up. You're lifting your lungs up. Your diaphragm is lifting through that deep breath. Breathe out. Expel all the waste, right? Focus your conscious mind on your breath. I will Count 1 to 3, and as I do, you'll go deeper and deeper into a state of relaxation. 1. Your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. The autonomic system is taking over on your body. Sit down, lie down, be in a place where you're comfortable and safe. Do it now. 1. Your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. You're no longer thinking about the laundry list or any of those other distractions. See it clearly. You're illuminating yourself by bringing in that prana. The prana is going into your blood. Your heart is pumping your blood, and it's swirling through your veins. Not going blub, blub, blub. It's swirling, 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 swirling. See it clearly. And it's going counterclockwise. And then 90 degrees parallax. Your blood is being turned into a scalar amplifier generating photonic light, right? And you see in your imaginary mirror, you see every cell of your body. It is, going through mitosis, splitting. You see the RNA zipping open because the mitochondria all around, the little lightning bolts all around every cell is energizing that cell with photonic light, and it's creating light, right? It's animating your bag of water. It's giving you the opportunity to serve love on this dimension. See it clearly. And as you see your body totally surrounded by that photonic light, you see yourself in your imaginary mirror, and you focus that light into your subconscious mind, and you walk into your subconscious mind, and your subconscious isn't a scary place. It is simply your sanction, your library of your Akashic record, right? And that's the record of your total existence. From in the beginning, it was all dark to way past whatever. See it clearly. And 2, you're in a deep, deep, deep state of relaxation, totally focused on your breath. Your autonomic system is controlling your avatar, and your free spirit, your soul, is walking into your uh, library of your Akashic record. In front of you is the eternal flame and the fireplace of knowledge. Right? All those big stones are really Akashic records. In front of it is a bunch of very comfy lounge chairs, and in front of that is your reading table. In front of that is your reading chair. And to your left of that is your librarian, your animal totem, and your guardian angel. You walk over to your table, and above it is this light coming down that's photonic. There is no shadow. See it clearly. Your librarian brings you your Akashic record, and you open it up to 2 blank pages. Put your right hand on the right page, your left hand on your left page, and you lean into your Akashic record, and you eliminate, you evacuate all the anger, all the fear, all the self-loathing, and all the things that frustrate you, all the things that upset you, you put it in there. And you close the book. And now you feel light and free. And all that terribleness is no longer in you, it's in your Akashic record. And I want you to see very clearly right now, the only thing going into your mind are good thoughts, right? Which bring good words, which bring good actions, which bring good deeds, which bring good outcomes. And from now on, you will not be distracted. As I say here, the main motivation of our soul suffering is our flawed navigation through the fabricated sea of negativity. And that is the, the thoughts, the absent thoughts that go in, oh, I hate this, I hate you, I hate that, I hate. No, you don't want that in your head, you know? These are irrelevant smells, tastes, and touch, making small, malevolent course corrections through our lives, meaning bringing forth bad words out of our mouth, which bring bad actions, which bring bad deeds, which bring bad outcomes. You don't want that in your life. from our Creator's reason for our existence to be part of its unconditional love and forgiveness. We need to learn to listen to the words of love that our Creator is unconditionally speaking passionately within our superconscious mind. That's where, that's all we need to listen to is love's passionate words to us. Right? We don't have to do any secret ceremony. We don't have to do anything. It's all inside of us. All we have to do is just quiet the irrelevant, you know, distortions and distractions. See it clearly. And in every day and every way, take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. Stronger. If we would only listen on our inside primal aboriginal self and trust the direct channel of our Creator's unconditional love, life and our world would transform all around us in one breath. And that's the window of opportunity I'm talking about. Guys, you know who I'm talking to. Right now, you know who I'm talking to. You're looking for a new, you're wanting to rebrand. You know you're losing control. You do the same thing over and over again. This is Rome all over, spending all your money pushing your power to conquer all the things around you, and the center is just going to collapse. It's going to collapse soon. Now, there are elements within your organizational structure that want it to collapse. There are many, at least 6 different conflicting elements within inside of the cabal. And they all want to do something different. They all want to whack the other 5 so they can be the only ones in power. They think when causing total chaos and collapse of everything, they'll be able to gain power. But gang, just look, look, no, that's not how it's going to work. It'll collapse. It'll get very stinky, very dirty, very dangerous. And those who, are lucky bastards and who serve love's co-creation will kind of be out of harm's way. Right? Like right now, my being a homeless guy is a good training, All the people with lots of money, there are a number of people who are always very generous to me, and I thank them a great deal. Thank you, thank you, thank you, And, I don't charge anybody anything, but if somebody wants to give me a gift, I'll take it. I'm not going to say, oh, I can't take that. No. No, that's the universe wanting to give me a gift. I'm going to take it. I'm not going to say no to that, right? What I am going to say is, okay, you need this. I'm going to charge you money because you need it, and I can charge you anything. And then, it's like people charging for food, and so we're coming into. I mean, we are presently living in a planet of abundance, but there are millions starving, and governments are paying farmers not to plant things. I mean, no. We should just bring food to the starving. We used to, but we don't anymore. Everything's about control. And so many people in control. Well, you should never let a disaster go unused. Anyone who gives up the opportunity to get over on people through a disaster, they just, they shouldn't be there. Because we have walked away from our Creator's unconditional love and forgiveness, we have had to invent a hollow sham of a frame to reference our counterfeit existence, a irrelevant control structure called social and religious mores. exactly, Mr. Dragon. And I give you blessings on your path, and I'm going to be there with you. Like I said, we just have to make a little stronger connection on the old internet and get our beans in a row, and we'll be fine. Right? Oh. Problem with this couch or whatever this thing is once I sink into it, I become gravitationally challenged. You know, so um, that little protocol I'm reading from is something I wrote, and I've written not hundreds, but many lessons. Oh, let's see. I just have to get up because the thing fell down. Where did it go off to? Oh, there it is. There's the old boiler boiling away. Like I said, no, oh wow, that's really cool. This thing is it just fell on the floor, and where I am, the heat is like this event above me. So right where I am, that's why there's this little space here. I'm semi-warm. Now, if I breathe out here, breathe in, I can feel the cold air. Now, this just fell on the floor, and it feels like ice. So it's kind of interesting to be in a place that is always 100% paranormal. Like everybody else, when I'm down here, nobody wants to be down here. They're scared of being down here. The only guy who comes down here is Grandpa, and he shouldn't because he can't. This is the weird ass steps here. Let's see. We humans break our own and our so called God's laws willy nilly as it suits our momentary, immaterial, material needs. The things we do to just get by make no sense, for without the love and forgiveness of our Creator, we have no foundation. We are just treading our life in spiritual quicksand. These curriculum will I will I offer and give you the individual the tools to take control of your superconscious mind simply by breathing with intent, resolution of mind, body, and spirit. This will bring forth new realities that will illuminate action rather than reaction, so that you, the individual, can make the choice to live life in love with one's existence and not be a slave to the habitual actions of mindless consumption of fear's recidivism. So those are words I wrote, but the teachings are immortal and come from many mystery schools. So I'll just read you the bullet points of these. There are about 20 lessons here. Breaking old patterns. To break our robot sense, we have to deal with the root of our aspirations from our Creator's unconditional love and forgiveness. This root cause is fear of abandonment from our Creator's unconditional love and forgiveness, fear that we are not worthy of our Creator's unconditional love and forgiveness. So I go through all the different mechanisms that we force ourselves through to, have basic self loathing. Hey, Jenny, good to see you. Coming down the chute. Yep. Well, let's see. And acting with the wisdom of courage of our love and forgiveness of our Creator. Its individual souls, can overcome and accomplish anything when we have courage of our conviction of our service in love's co creation. Courage, it takes courage to make anything happen. Courage is faith in action. When we act with courage, it indicates we are being asked to recognize and honor the strength of our own courage, and that resides in the spirit of our superconscious mind. Courage in our foundation of our growth and understanding the wisdom of all the challenges life brings us. Within the challenge of the action of our faith in our Creator's unconditional love and forgiveness is the realization that all things are as they should be. Kind of, that's how I roll. That's the essence of being a lucky bastard. Are you always losing the keys to your life? Can you find what will make you complete? Or are you always settling for the same old stuff? We, the people, the children of God, have chosen to separate ourselves from our Creator's life's love that illuminates all that truly is by choosing to live in the dark, dank cave of thought that limits our world with illusions like thinking the world is flat, or that the holy book is the only true book of God, or our God is the only true God. Therefore, we should kill all other non believers. Sounds like a business plan to me, gang. Yeah. Yep. We, the monkey children of God, have been sold into slavery on the cheap, where in the past bread and the circus was all it took. Now, today, fast food and flat screens keep the majority of our body politic enslaved. We, the people, are the brainwashed by our mindless sensory consumption and believing that our only needs are our creature comforts, which today, as in the past, seem only to give us social and spiritual heartburn. Our free will does not give us right to destroy our world, for it is not ours to destroy. Can we make our community better by mere fact that we consume it? No, we have to be brave and make ourselves do what we have to for our brethren, our families, our children, and the future. The problem is that unless you are coming from inside yourself, and not here, but here, right? Unless you are, in spirit, breathing that 20% in, breathing the 30% out, illuminating yourself, being in your Akashic record, and then traveling into your superconscious mind. Unless you're present, that thing fell down on the floor again. The spirits just keep knocking stuff on that floor to make it cold and make me bend over there. So, let's see. We've been now almost 2 hours. So that's one of our little problems. We are so distracted by the material illusion that we can't breathe. And so we have less oxygen. So we have less prana. We have less animation of love's co-creation. Right? So all we have to do is breathe that 20%, go into state, do it at least 5 times a day, at least, if not 20. That's the Muslim religion. They do it 5 times a day. They call to pray 5 times a day. And the prayers that they do, the process they do, puts them in that ketoacidosis thing, where they're breathing in a way where they are bringing prana into their body, right? And the problem is, in all of these things, it is very simple to cause frustration, catastrophe, chaos, and trauma. And when you do that, that is a key tool to put people into a hypnagogic state. And when you put somebody in a hypnagogic state, you can make them do anything. That's what happens, in the Manchurian Candidate. I had the guy look at cards, and when he sees the King of Hearts, he goes into a hypnagogic state. When you get drafted, or you go into the, well, they don't have drafts anymore, but when you're brought into the Army, when you volunteer, they basically have you sign a document that basically says you are giving yourself over to the military. You have no say in this. You have no free will. You have to obey the orders. And that's when you start setting women and children on fire and machine gunning villages and killing the innocents, right? And then if you say, no, I can't do this, they shoot you, right? So you should not go in that state, because in basic training, the major thing they did, you ever see that movie, Full Metal Jacket? That was one of Stanley Kubrick's. Every movie he made was brilliant, right? But that was because that really told the story on, what the military does to people's souls, And people go off and do really terrible things. And it isn't until they get out that they then have PTSD about all of that they did, and they can't do anything about it. Now, in the deep green this summer, I easily talked to 200 people who strolled through my campsite who were soldiers, and they couldn't fit in. So they're out there in the national forests. They had the training to be out there, and they would, I'm right off the AT, and people have told other people, well, there's this guy. All I have to do is find this river and find a waterfall, and there he is. And that's where I am. And like I said, more than a couple hundred people have come and camped in my campsite and just wanted to talk to me. And once they talked and released that self-loathing, fear, anxiety, and just guilt for what they did in the name of this country, and then what they saw this country to really be, and how they were cheated, lied, and there's just an article in the Washington Post about, you hear this thing called the Pentagon Papers, right? And the Ellsberg, who gave them to New York Times and Washington Post, then went to jail for it. He wasn't a traitor. He was a Marine. He was in Vietnam. He saw what happened. Then he worked for the intelligence community, and he came across this document where he saw that the war was artificially manufactured, and that the fighting of the war had no political reason for being done. No real exit strategy, no end. It was just making billions of dollars for Bell Aerospace that was being run by a Nazi. The guy, what was Dernberg? The guy who they wanted to string him up. This guy ran all of the SS top science factories and killed millions of workers. Didn't work hard enough. They put a spear through you and hung you on the ceiling. And we brought him into our government and had him run NASA, and then his lover boy, Werner von Braun was the poster boy of it, right? And then Dernberg went to Bell, and Bell, made all of the X aircraft, the X-15, the X-1, the Bell, first plane to go the speed, Chuck Yeager's Glamour, all those were X aircraft. And X, you look in all of the esoteric works, X represents a very powerful um, dark field of energy. So whenever you put things in an X category, and all of the research that the U.S. was doing after World War II was, they have, classified, stuff you shouldn't talk about, classified, top secret, and then like, Uber, and then something else, and then magic, and then X, right? And where the X Files, Scully was one of the head FBI guys who was in charge of all the flying saucer information, all of the, they were also part of the guys who lied about who the 70,000 Nazis coming in. Oh, no, they're nice. They weren't Nazis. They were just following orders. They were people, but we need their help to get us. Oh, we should be really scared of those Russians. Why should we be scared? Russians were our allies, and the Germans killed 60 million of them and bombed their whole country into the Stone Age. How can a country be bombed, be really a threat? When I visited Yugoslavia in 1977 to photograph the Olympics, and I was put in an amazing hotel room. I mean, the bathroom was bigger than my apartment in New York City, but there were only 6 slices of toilet paper. I called, I used all 6 and I still needed more. And I called up down to the lobby and said, hey, what's up with the 6 slices of the toilet paper? And the lady said, that's all you'll get for the week. I said, well, but there's 7 days in the week. What do I do? She goes, hold it. And if you use the towels or the blankets, we'll know and get you. I said, well, what am I supposed to do? Go to the black market and buy some toilet paper. So I went to the black market. It cost me $50 for a roll of toilet paper that was like, worse than, newspaper. So I started buying a newspaper, and using that. So Russia was never a threat. Nothing is as it seems to be, you know. And you can tell this once you learn to go into state. You can view everything, what's going on around you, who's telling you what stories, what blah, 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 right? So these different people that I said, this guy's pretty good, like the dark journalist, pretty good. Why? Because I've used going into state and looking at what he's saying, going, Plus, I've heard a great deal of what this guy is saying for the last 40 years from people who were on the inside. When I was at Los Alamos and San Diego and Kirkland Air Force Base, I heard stories from these folks because I was somebody they could talk to who worked there but wasn't on their realm. And people got the sense they could tell me things and I wouldn't talk about it, right? Which I haven't until now, 40 years later. And it's all coming out anyway. So the Washington Post just had a story where the Bush Cheney um, Rumsfeld administration knew that Al Qaeda didn't bomb this; that it mostly came from Israel and Saudi Arabia. I mean, the guys on the airplanes were from Saudi Arabia, and they come from a very, very, very radical group who aren't even Muslim. I mean, they're like from way off the chart, just like Donnie has just signed this executive order saying that Judaism is like being African, so it's worse than even being anti-Semitic. Whatever Israel wants to do is so because they got upset that people were getting educated about what Israel was doing, and to the all the people around them, and that it wasn't even the Hebrew nation; it was the Zionists that were going nuts over this. And so he basically said everything the Zionists say we're going to do. Right? His son-in-law, is number one boy in that, you know. And he bought a building, that's 666 Park Avenue. So, I mean, don't believe anything I say, you know. First and foremost, don't believe anything I say. You have to um, get into state. You have to feel and be real with yourself and with what's going on. You need to see it yourself, not me. I'm just your grid. I'm just telling you stories, to kind of make you go, huh? I got to check this out, instead of, huh? Pass me a cookie. I tell you, don't do that. I did that for 10 years, right? And I loved every slice of to die for chocolate cake, but I gained 270 pounds and it killed me. When I died, I went, to the other side and they were like, hey, here's a balloon. Good to see you. Put on the party hat. Oh, you mean I can come home now? And they go, no, no, you got to go back. What? Well, you got to go. You're not done. You got to finish up. You promised to. You're a lucky bastard. That's part of the deal. You're not leaving that. I mean, you've died so many times, you've suffered so much, you really think you're going anywhere yet until you get it done? That's why I'm doing Dreamy Dreamland, right? This is what they call me to do. This is what I'm doing. It's kind of fun. I'd have way much more fun if you guys wanted to. It would just take a handful of us to put the circus together. And I have a whole bunch of really well connected entertainment people. Once I get something on the road, they will jump on board. They'll put money into this. But, they'll send me a few here and there just to keep me alive because I'm their friend, but I can't hit them up all the time. Just one, you got to keep those emergency people fresh. With the emergency. My car broke down 2 years ago, and it cost $2,500. And I did not have that $2,500, but one of my guardian angels, okay, not a problem. I just can't hit them up all the time, you know. And there are others who are more familial, who are more like, oh, no, can't help you. And I said, okay, well, I wasn't really asking because I knew you wouldn't. But some of my sisters, they're very nice. They are pretty good as long as I don't ask for too much. They're pretty. They are also guardian angels who, when I don't have that extra $10, they're going to turn the electricity off. They'll take care of that. And that's why, I'm not worrying because I have enough of a support team around. It'd be nice not, to have more than $43 between now and middle of next month, but I know it'll work out. Some of you guys will, say, oh, well, we need to send Al Bob something on his PayPal at the dude awake 42 at Gmail. And it always works out. So I'm not worrying. And enough of you guys are thinking about, bringing me along for, and Dragon definitely wants to do it, and I'm all for it. But again, it has to be more realistic. It has to be, I'm a guy who I can't just drive someplace and not find anyone there. It's never a good thing. It's I'm probably, he's saying Georgia. Well, from where I am in West Virginia to just the border in Georgia, it's probably 400 miles, three or 400 miles. That's about $100 just in getting a few things fixed in my car and enough gas to get there, and with nothing when I get there. So it has to be somewhat secure, somewhat okay. This is the plan, right? So that's what I'm up for. And Dragon, I would love to do it. Yep. You're the most wanting to do it, so I'm up for it. Maybe others in the crew might throw some cash both our ways to make this happen and come and be part of the ride. We can rent something, and if 5 people were sharing the rent rather than just 2, it'd be even more affordable, right? And whatever waitress job or mediocre job you have, you can get it anywhere, you know? And I could read palms anywhere and make a nice little something, right? And because you have to have a place to do that. And I used to in this, you know, but I'm like, not, you know, I'm in farmland and there's nobody looking to get their palms read in farmland, except when I go, hey, let me read your palm, like today. Meaning I couldn't ask that girl who was in emotional trauma, who needed my help, to say, oh, by the way, you really are traumatized right now. I can see you crying while you're still trying to smile. Um, Give me $20 and I'll do a few things for you and make you feel better. No, I can't do that. When I see someone suffering, I can go. I have to go and take care of it. As long as doctor do no harm, there's a way to exit strategy. And 3, I'm going to learn something. Um, Now, if she had, you know, $20 in her pocket, and that's happened to me before. The other day, I was in a restaurant, having a cup of coffee, staying warm, and there was someone who I started talking to, and they came over and sat down, and I started giving them a cold reading, and they said, "Oh wow, can I have my lunch here?" And I said, "Sure, you can have your lunch here." So she ordered something, and she looked at me and said, "Don't you want to eat something?" I said, "Well," and then the hostess said, "Is that one check or two?" And she said, "That'll be one." And I said, "Oh yeah, I'll have something," you know. And I had lunch, and then I told her more and more and more, and we worked out Then she started talking. I got her to talk, and that's part of my process. I kind of show people things, and they go, "Wow," and then they talk, and they talk about the deeper things, and that's what I want you guys on the live chat. I've been trying to get you to say more than just the, you know, stuff you're saying here. I'm glad you're here. I love you all. Uh, what's that you're drinking? Cheers. What color was the balloon? Stuff like that. I want a little more deeper. I mean, I've asked you, just read you some interesting stuff, and I kind of wanted to know what you felt about it. Well, this lady who I had lunch with last week, well, she went deeper and deeper and deeper. And we then worked out a strategy for what she was dealing with. And, she said, wow, after about an hour and a half, she paid our lunch. She goes, do you need anything? Do you want to go to? I said, well, what do you felt that was worth? What, I can't charge you for this, but you can give me a gift. The lunch was nice, but if you have anything else, sure. So she, gave me $20, right? Then we went outside and there was a gas station, and she filled her car up and she filled my tank up. So she put another like 30. I was like on fumes, right? I mean, I actually didn't have enough gasoline to get back to the farm, but she filled my tank up. I had no money, but I went to see somebody else who needed a listening to, some support, and they had no money, so I didn't ask them for anything, and I went to where they were instead of saying, "Oh, we'll meet at a restaurant," because then we both have to look at a glass of water, and I helped them get over what they were wanting to get over, and then I went to, I went by this place and I heard, oh, you should go in there and have a cup of coffee. Oh, I did. And, like 5 minutes later, this lady came and sat down next to me. And, hour and a half later, she gave me $20 and filled my car with gasoline. Right? So that's how it goes, I didn't, I don't have a big sign. Reader will read for money. No, they don't quite do that, but the universe kind of takes care of it all the time. And I've been around long enough to have faith in it, right? And when I needed a lot of money, the universe brought me to, the different careers I had, making a lot of money. Being a artist, being a master electrician, being a healer, being a demographer, being a scholar. Those are all kind of things I got paid pretty good for, comfortably, not like $1 zillion, but comfortably. And it also gave me the ability not to have to really sell my soul to a job or career or anything. Like my friend who worked for the licensing, the power licensing guy, who I amazingly met in this restaurant I was in. I couldn't believe that he was there. I said, "What are you doing here?" And he told me his story, and and he was nice enough to, said, "Who's buying your lunch?" And I said, "Well, I got about $11." So again, he kind of sat with me and paid my $8 lunch, and stuck a 20 in my pocket. So that's how you know, and that's why I have $43 rather than $23. Because the 20 was from that lady of last week. I mean, I'm pretty good at staying on my budget, right? And because when I don't have the money for something, all I have to do is dig around in my car. Like my friends fixing my friend's stuff at this house. I didn't have, if I went to Lowe's, I'd probably have to spend $200. But I, found everything I needed. It was quite, you know, it constantly rejuvenates my faith, and that's all I have is faith. I have faith and love's co-creation. That's all I got. I don't believe in anything, right? And that's why I keep telling you, don't believe anything I say. So, oh, look at this, 9:19, and we have been talking for 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds. So that looks pretty synchronistic to me. So let's see what you guys will say. Okay, you probably wouldn't be able to read palms. The place I'm working at. No, oh, you mean they wouldn't let me? Well, usually, pretty much anybody. I mean, I have read palms in really fancy schmancy restaurants, because what happens, I'll go in, I'll get myself a cup of tea. The waitress who serves me, I'll read her palm, right? And she'll, oh, that's amazing. And then she'll go tell the other work staff that, hey, there's this guy out there, just, I can't believe it. He just can you read my palm? And I go, sure. Here, let me read your palm. And I read everyone's palm. And then the chef comes out, who is usually pretty tight with the owner. And then the owner comes out. So what are you doing here? I said, oh, I'm just kind of having a cup of tea and reading your staff's palms. And then he sits down and I start telling him about his staff or her staff and how that the owner is treating them. And if they want to make more money, they just have to make a few little navigational changes in how they treat them, and this place will hum pretty well. And then I'll say, let me read your palm. So, and that's why they came over, to get their palm, because they heard everybody talking about me. So they read the palm, and I read them even better. And they're like, whoa. And then he goes, well, can you stick around and help me make, those things you were talking about? I said, sure. He goes, well, you want to, you just had a cup of tea. You want dinner? Sure. Then the night crowd rolls in, and he brings his favorites over. Hey, this guy, he's my newest best friend, and he reads palms. Here, read their palm. I start reading their palm. And within the next day, he goes, you want to do this regularly here? I said, sure. Can I just, put a little sign out and put a hat out, and just I'll take donations. I won't charge. Then you don't have to worry about taxes. And he goes, okay, that's great. And then I'm there a week, and he realizes that his business has gone up 20%. And that's when, okay, you can stay here, you can sleep here. There's a place out back for do you need a hotel room? If people offer me things, hey, I can take them. I just can't say that'll be $19.95, and if you order it today, you'll get two. So I can't charge per se. And for a lot of other reasons, it works out much better. People just want to give me money, right? I don't charge, don't ask for it, right? They want to give it, not a problem. And usually when you let people when you say, give me what you want, what you think this is worth. They'll give you way more than what most people would charge for it, right? Like, when I had my practice, I never charged anybody. Oh, well, after they'd be like, oh, wow, I feel the best I ever had. That's when I could say, oh, well, you can pay me $400. No, I say, see, there's a little basket by the door. You put in whatever you feel like. And because my clientele were Wall Street brokers who were making millions, they always had a few Benjamins in their pocket. They had their little debit card thing that would be just down the street. So they would empty their wallets into my little basket, and I did pretty good, you know. And of course, I spread that around. The restaurants that were down that neighborhood, I would tip pretty good, because then I would get the best cut of meat. I would get the best seat in the house. I would get the best service. I remember one time there was this really, Wall Street after 6 o'clock, everything closes up. But there were three um, restaurants. One was a real restaurant, that was like your basic greasy spoon kind of workers kind of place. It was, like a New York deli kind of place. And they had pretty good food, wouldn't kill you, tasted okay. Probably not, it was all meat, Reubens and big meat sandwiches. And the guy there loved me. Everybody who worked for him loved me. They were totally nuts, but they loved me, right? And so there were lots of Wall Street types because even though that whole neck of the woods closed down, after 6 o'clock, it's still, because of computers, and that was just starting when I lived down there in the 70s. Um, there was always somebody going into that place for eating something. And then there were two other restaurants. One was this really schmancy, the Fulton Fish Market kind of fish restaurant. I forgot what it wasn't called the Fulton Fish Market restaurant, but it was right on, you know, Water Street, and it was quite very, 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 very fancy. You couldn't just walk in off the street to eat in that place. And there was another place that was like a super secret, fancy schmancy, really rich people kind of place. And in the movie, oh, John, and the Keanu Reeves movies where he's a killer and he tries to get out and somebody kills his dog and the movie's off to the races. And the table is like the hidden hand. And there's a guy who owns this hotel, right? And it's right on the corner, like, you know, the Wall Street market, the where they buy and sell stuff there, um, you know, is right there. Wall Street is the street here. Pearl Street runs into it. Corner, Pearl and Wall, right on that corner, is this really richy guy kind of hotel. It's just like in the movie, but they call it something else. But that's a building, and in the movie they use that building because what better? Because they have this amazing lobby, they have this amazing restaurant kind of garden on top of the roof, and each room is so. That's why they made the movie there, because it is what that movie. Anyway, those three places, I could just walk in, right? The really, really super fancy place, Grandpa Stoll walked me in there one day, and he wired it back in the 20s. And the thing was still had stuff from the 20s, so not any electrician could fix that. And he walked me in there when I was 12. And by that time, I was pretty good electrician. I was his protege, We would go on things, and I would carry the tools and, knew what it was like I was his nurse. I knew what pliers or screwdrivers or magnifying glass or light. I always put the light right on where he needed to see. And, and I could take care of other things. I would figure out what this circuit or that circuit was doing, and we would talk about it, so he didn't have to like go around and hunt and squirm on the floor or up in the attic. I would do all of that. So we went in that place, and he got the manager and said, see this guy? He's going to be your new electrician. I'm already like 112. I can't see. He is my protege. I'm showing him everything. You will have the relationship with this young man, and he will be your electrician for all the years that I kind of after 40 years kind of cut out of there. But, for a good 28 years, I serviced those people like he did, and got their trust and their care and their liking, and they paid me really, and I could go in there and have anything I wanted to eat 20, and I just lived down the street, and it was, when I would have meetings with architects and rich people for projects I were going to do. That was the most that I heard about this place, but they don't let anybody in here. And I would just walk in, and the guy at the door would tip his hat. The manager would come out and shake my hand and say, "Al, it's always good to see you. You want your table?" "Yes, Jose, my table." And would be out on this veranda that had the most amazing view of the Battery and the city and the Statue of Liberty, and so it's good to be Al, and I still have that. There's, even every place I go, there's a place of that nature that I can, have done a favor for them, and so they're glad to see me, and that's why I'm a lucky bastard, and that's why I don't worry when I mean, most people, they were to get down to $43 in their pocket, and they knew they weren't getting any more money until 3 weeks from now. They would be freaking out. No, I'm not. You know, so. Because I know, if I don't have the money, I can just, if I had to sit in my car for a week, I can do it. But it always works out, just like the other day. I just, I went and helped a friend. And after I took care of that, I was driving back. And like, I didn't even know if I had the gas to get back, because I drove about 60 miles there, and I had to drive another 60 miles back. And when I hit the little button and say, "What's my range?" and it said 4 miles, I said, and then I heard this voice, "Why don't you go in there for a cup of tea?" So I did, and I met the lady and gave her. She couldn't believe the things I told her and the things I showed her, and put it into perspective, and I didn't ask for anything, you know. But things were very obvious, when um, the guy said, "So you want anything to eat?" She said, "Oh, yeah, I want to eat something." And then she looked at me, said, "Don't you want to eat anything?" And I said, and that's when the waiter was smart enough to go, "One check or two?" And then she looked at me and she goes, "Yeah, and one check." And that's when I ordered something, you know. And then, she knew. And then I really, blew her doors down by giving her the insight to certain things. And so she said, "Here," you know. And she basically, she had, all she had was plastic, but she had a 20, and she said, "Here's the 20." Then we went out, and she goes, "Do you need some gas?" And I go, "Oh, yes, I could use some gas." So we pulled up to a gas pump. She was on one side, I was on the other. She put gas in hers, and then she just stuck the thing in my gas, and filled me up, and all the way to full, full, full. She put like $30 in there. So I didn't ask for any of that, but she gave it, and that's how it works, you know. So that's how it works. Well, the thing about that, so I've had mystery schools, right? And so again, I don't say that'll be 1995. I basically say, you got to pull yours. So a good student is like me. I'm here at my friend's place, and I fix their everything. I took care of their animals, and I've been, cleaning all their dishes, washing, cleaning their house every day. Every day they walk in from work, the place is neat and tidy. And they, if it was left up to them because they're so harried and running around, and, had to take care of the animals, got to go to work, got to do this, got to do that, the place looks like, you know, so I clean everything up. That's a good guest. So if you came to visit me, and plus I bring, so they eat the same kind of stuff over and over, but I know they like stuff. So, you know, um, I got a friend of mine took me to the supermarket, and I got a lot of things. We went to this place. She's a member of, it's like Sam's Club, but nicer. And so we got some nice cheeses, got some nice crackers, got some nice pickled things. And every day they would come in a couple of nice bottles of wine. This one lady, she likes her wine. And so they would come in from work, and there'd be a spread there, of cheeses and pickled things and crackers and an open bottle of wine. And so as they watched TV and relaxed, instead of eating, macaroni and cheese, they had some nice food. They like nice food. They just don't have the time and space to prepare it. So that's the kind of guest I am, and that's why I can stay here a month, right? Because they like their privacy, so they're not, that's why I'm down in the basement, in the coal bin, because I stay out of their way, you know. So yeah, so if people come to visit me, if they can be a guest like that you like them there, and if they come to study, so I've had, so I've been member of many schools and been the the best of students because I am who I am, not because I'm brown nosing or like this. When I lived at the ashram in Putney, right? You know, we were all sent there. There were 12 of us, and most of them were doctors and nurses and had, credentials and were whoop-de kind of people. Because our sensei, he was a healer, he was a medical guy. He'd done everything, But he was also a Shinto Japanese priest. And so he came to bring his disciplines to America. And this lady who knew him in Japan uh, her mother died, and she gave him her mother's farm in Putney, Vermont. And so those different doctors had their own teachers or, you know, people who knew Sensei, and they were sent to learn, you know, the more interesting esoteric healing techniques. And my mentor who sent me there was, you know, during the Vietnam War, I kind of stay out of the way of my draft board. I didn't break any laws. I just could never be found. I was on the bop. Where is he? Oh, he was just here. So I never got the letter. I never, but I don't know why they took so much effort looking for me, but they did. And then when I came back to New York and I was tired of being on the bop, I went back to being me, and I didn't hide, and they kind of mailed me something and sent me a letter, and I went to visit them. And I went, I thought I was just going to be processed, and I wasn't. They kind of look, oh, you need to go see Captain so-and-so upstairs, room 419, whatever. So I went up there and went in, and he said, oh, and he knew who I was. He must have had a picture of me. Oh, Al, come on, sit down. Or the guy down at the desk called him, and he had my file. It was like that, he had a big file on me. And he was like looking at it, not showing me, but he said, we don't think we can trust you with a gun. So how would you like to do alternative service? And I said, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So he goes, well, if you get drafted, 2 years. Alternative service, 6. You down for that? I said, well, do I get all the same stuff? GI Bill, all this. Oh, yeah, you get all that stuff, And, you'll get a little better pay because you'll be doing a little something. And I said, okay. So he, he pulls out of my folder. This is like contracts. You sign here, sign here, sign here. Autograph that, do this, do that. Okay. Shake hands. He goes, okay, now you're going to go visit this guy over, not here, but over on Water Street. Okay, I kind of live over there. So, yeah, I know. So I go visit that guy, and he goes, okay, so you're going to go to such and such in Alabama and work for Vista. I said, well, that sounds interesting. Yeah, okay. So he gives me the address. He gives me, I'm going to take military transport, Okay. And I'm going to be delivered to this guy in Alabama. So I go down there, I start working there, and I'm making too much
I'm trying to do too good of a job, instead of just doing, don't volunteer for, well, I was trying to see all these kids in need and all these people start, and, I said, well, why don't we do this? And how about doing that? And what if we do this and do it this way? What do you think about that? And I just started getting people moving in the right direction. And even my superior, well, that's a great idea. Why don't we do? Yeah, okay. Because he wasn't a jerk or an asshole. He was just doing what he was told. Anyway, after about 2 months of stirring things up and making things better, we get the word from up high, no, we're not. We have to go back to doing the old way. And by the way, Al has to come back to New York. Okay. So, it's, I get the order, I go back, right? And I go back to that guy, on Water Street. And he goes, well, okay, that didn't work. I said, wait, well, I was doing great. He goes, yeah, I know. Okay, just it didn't work. Not what the upper office wanted, Yes, you did a great job. And because you did a great job, we got a better job for you. Oh, okay. Where am I going? You're going to go to Fort Hamilton. Okay. And what am I going to do there? Well, they'll tell you, just go to Fort Hamilton. Here's your little ID. And, go, to their front desk and, ask to speak to Sergeant so-and-so. And it was a VA hospital, right? In Brooklyn. And so, Monday I show up there, go talk to the Sarge. The Sarge says, okay, you're going to be an orderly. I said, well, that sounds fun. Oh, and he goes, kid, it's not going to be fun. Well, what do you mean? He goes, well, this hospital, when you get blown up in Vietnam, you either go to this major hospital in Korea or this major hospital in Guam, and or to Germany. And they patch you back up together, and come back to a hospital like ours that has, if you need more operations, you can get them here, and you need physical therapy and whatever kind of therapy, um, but these are all kids who were basketball stars one year and then no legs the next. Like Forrest Gump, Lieutenant Dan, that's what was there. And the whole hospital was that. So there were people like, when Lieutenant Dan was really depressed and doing drugs and had long hair and stank. And so every one of these guys, why did you let me live? What made me me is gone. And I, being an orderly, I spent more time with those guys than the nurses or the doctors or the anybody else. Because I was always there to empty their bedpan or to move them on their bed or to bathe them. I did the more, right there kind of stuff. But, I was me. I didn't like try to treat them like a vegetable, like which most people did. Because they didn't want to involve their emotions because when they did, it took too much of a toll on them. And but I never stopped being me, never stopped kidding around, never stopped making jokes about stuff. And I got them to like have wheelchair races and do all kinds of kind of fun. Well, this is going to be fun. I don't care what that guy says. I'm going to have fun with these guys. And it brought up their emotions. So they worked harder at doing their PT, And so one day, I was there maybe a month, and one day, so I got to know everybody, all the doctors, all the nurses, read their palms, did this, did that, try to make things better, lighter, move forward, not get stuck. And kept talking about not getting stuck and all that kind of stuff. And one day, the head guy, uh, the head a colonel who ran everything, and he was the head surgeon, and he had really white hair. And he walks in and he goes, Al, come over here. I said, yes, sir. I know who he was. He's head guy. He's the picture when you walked in. There's the picture, head guy. And so I said, yes, sir. And I almost saluted him. And my basic outfit was pair of shorts, cowboy boots, Hawaiian shirt, mirrored sunglasses, and a cowboy hat. That's what I wore. I didn't wear, you know, scrubs or a white jacket, or that's kind of how I looked, right? And they got tired of saying no, and I rode a motorcycle to work. The only time I had a motorcycle, you know. And so, and you heard me coming. I had a panhead, a Harley, and I knew not, I was not, a, I knew nothing about motorcycles or how to fix them. And I had a friend, and he said, I have this motorcycle. You can use it. I'll even pay the insurance. Just don't crash into anything. It's not my favorite Harley, but I still wouldn't want you to wreck it. So because I think I've seen you drive. You're a very conservative kind of driver. You're not a hothead. So and it wasn't that far. Meaning I was coming from the Lower East Side, and he lived in the Lower East Side, and we kept the bikes chained up in this little garbage pit next between these two houses, and so I would drive that to work. It wasn't mine, but he let me use it. And that was mine because Fort Hamilton it's one of those things. It's like it's right there in Brooklyn, but it wasn't near any real mass. No subways, no trains, no buses. You'd have to walk a good. So people who had to come to that place had to walk those extra 10, 15 blocks. And in the wintertime, it was right on the friggin' river. It was a bit nippy. So anyway, I would write, so when they heard me coming in the parking lot, that thing made a lot of noise. So people knew I was arriving. And uh, yeah, I rode a Harley in shorts. Yep. With cowboy boots, Hawaiian shirt, mirrored sunglasses, and cowboy hat. I mean, it would change up a little bit, but pretty much that was my go-to look. And anyway, so also rode a BMW. He had a BMW, and I liked the BMW. That was a real nice road bike. The Harley was just, I mean, it was okay, but I'm not a motorcycle guy. I'm not a Harley guy, and the BMW was really comfortable and a lot easier to ride. You didn't have to It was lighter. It was a German, timepiece. Anyway, I diverge. So my boss calls, yeah, come over here. And he goes to me, listen, you're going to be my protege. I go, what? What are you talking about? Because he's a surgeon. He's the head of this place. He's a colonel. Wants me as his protege. I said, what do you, sir? I don't know, but I'm a freak. He goes, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a guy like you. You don't run by the rules, but you don't break them either. You do the best that needs to be done. I watch you. I've been watching this whole month. You do the best. You don't do the least. You do the best, and you're not stuck to any protocols. You study the protocols, and what's good about them, you do them. What's bad about them, you just don't do them. You don't fight them. You just don't do them. You don't rub it in people's face. You don't cause arguments. You do the best. You lead by example. You're the lowest man on the totem pole, and you lead by example. And I learned a few years later, being the lowest on the totem pole is the most important person on the totem pole. And he knew this too. Anyway. So I became his protege. And what that was to keep doing what I was doing, but bring it more into the protocol of the place. So I wouldn't be the only person doing what I was doing. And I was helping him develop a protocol for that hospital. And our biggest problem was that the war in Vietnam was mostly about the manufacturing and distribution of heroin, right? And one of the things they did was, so if somebody was really blown up like these guys were, they'd have to air medevac them, not just in a helicopter to the hospital in, South Vietnamese, but they would fly them from there on a big C-130 to either one of those Guam or South Korea or Germany. And to do that, because they would have a bunch of guys, like 100 or 300, however many they could fit in a C-130. And they would basically put them comatose on morphine. And once they got that much morphine in their body in one shot, they were basically addicted, period. And that's why so many came back addicted, because they would fly that many out, you know, 1,200 to 3,000 a month, you know. So we would get, the kids who lived in Brooklyn in that shape, right? And so not only were they blown up and missing limbs, but they were addicted to heroin. So to really get them to do get them back into life, they had to get off of heroin. It was very difficult. And so, and they had this stuff called methadone. That was the procedure. Get them on methadone. Well, methadone was worse than heroin because it's synthetic heroin developed by the Nazis for a specific reason. They didn't have enough crazy people to run the death camps. So they got all of the guards and administrators hooked on, and it was called aldalphamine. And this was a synthetic that once it hit your neuroreceptors up there that the opiates would go into, opiates you can kick. It's messy and not good, but you can kick it. But methadone, once it gets there, you're addicted for life. And if you can't get the methadone, you climb a wall, just grow nuts. And so you'll shoot heroin or any other opiate to fill in that space. So that was our protocol to figure out how to get the kids off of all this stuff and get them back into their life. And that was my job, right? So why that colonel was so enamored with me is that back in the day, he was a surgeon during World War II, and he was in the Philippines, and the Japanese overran them, and he did not go on the long march. He ran up into the mountains and fought with the resistance. And so he was the only surgeon they had up there. So he was up there in the mountains with him, a Chinese herbalist, and a Filipino psychic surgeon. Now, he was a surgeon, but he ran up that hill, and all he carried was his gun and his go bag, and he did not have his surgical stuff, a little bit, but not really. So he couldn't be a surgeon. He didn't have an operating room. He didn't have all the things he needed to be a surgeon. So he was the bedpan guy, and the Chinese herbalist and the psychic surgeon. He would just reach into people and pull the bullets out, right? So this guy saw these two guys do stuff that was not in his medical book. So after the war, the Chinese guy was well known in China, and China was our ally. So he went back and met Mao, and Mao liked him, and he had learned Chinese from the Chinese guy and learned Filipino from and Spanish from the Filipino guy. And so he spent a good 15 years going all over the world studying alternative medicine. His bosses, um, you know, basically sent him all around, also to do intelligence work on these countries that he was bouncing around in. But mostly, he was learning that. So he went to Japan, and that's where he met my sensei, right, in this ashram, and he studied there with that guy. So when this, 20 years later, he's the colonel at this hospital. He's in charge, and that's when he goes, "Okay, Al, we've gotten as far as we can get doing it this way. So I'm going to start sending you to some of the people I studied with, and they're going to teach you even more. Really, you're the guy. You are already looking at this stuff. You're already researching this stuff, so it's you know enough to go study with these people where they won't be pissed off that you don't know anything. So I say, "Oh, see, thanks, Colonel." So I do. And the first person I went to was I went to Putney, Vermont, and I was studying with this the sensei. And we all show up we take the Greyhound bus into Putney, and we go to the Putney, what do they call that place? Not the market, but the co-op. And upstairs was a coffee shop that was kind of nice. I had really good bake stuff, and downstairs you could buy your lentil. You could buy things by the bag. It was a real, back to the land co-op hippie town. That was Putney. So we're there, and we got off the bus, and this lady is waiting for us all, and she goes, "We're going to go upstairs and have coffee in about 2 hours. Sensei's supposed to arrive, on this other bus." And so, okay, so we go up there, have lunch. We talk to her, and she is a nurse. She was a military nurse, and she had gotten blown up in Korea, and so she was, limping, but she had worked at the VA nearby. Now she was semi-retired. She was working for a doctor. The doctor had known, was in the military too, and had met Sensei and knew my colonel, right? And all the people who were the other people on the bus that came from New York, um, they were all medical people, and some of them were highfalutin medical, doctors who weren't in the military, who just got there because they, someone got them there, and they were, but they thought really highly of themselves, right? But they were going to learn all they could and then be a better surgeon, right? And so there were 12 of us, and about 6 to 8 were in the military in some way, like me. I wasn't a military guy. I mean, just look at me. I'm not a military guy, but I understood the procedure. My dad was in the military. I knew it, right? So anyway, we're waiting. Sensei gets out and he's in his orange robe, and he's really tall. He's like 6 something, not your average Japanese guy. Now his facial eyes, he looked Japanese, but the rest of him looked very European, and that's what he was. He was Swiss and Japanese and Spanish. So interesting guy to say no least. And he had spent all his life in a Japanese Shinto ashram in Hiroshima, and he was there when they dropped the bomb. So this guy had some serious experience and stories and information to give to us. So we all, this lady, she had a van. We all got in a van. We all drove back to the farm, and it was a mess. No one had done anything with his farm in like 20 years. So I get out, and half the people are going, "I want to go back on the bus. I don't want to be here." And the lady says, "Sorry, you got to be here for at least a week, and then if you want to go back, yes, but contractually you're here for a week." We were all supposed to spend a year there, and so anyway, what did I do? I just walked all over the place. I looked at everything. I went in the house, saw if it was, we'd fall through the floor or what would need to be livable, right? And then I went out to the barn, and the barn was a really big hay barn, and then there was a little milking barn, and then there was a tractor shed, right? Your average dairy farm. And what was really interesting was that upstairs in the hay, no one had cows in this place for at least 10, 15, 20 years, if not more. And the whole barn upstairs, which was the hayloft, someone had made out into a kind of nice apartment. It actually had a toilet and a shower, and of course the water didn't quite work. But what I found about the water in the barn, it didn't come from the well. They had a cistern, meaning all the rain would go into these barrels, and then the barrels would fill up the toilet and the hot water heater and the sink, and it was quite nice. It had a carpet and had a nice bed, and it had furniture. And so I'm like moving stuff around and seeing what it is, and this girl, Judy, comes up. She was one of the people, and she says, "I've been watching. You're checking the place out, see if we can live here." And I said, "Yep. Look at this. Oh, this is nice." She said, "Oh, I love." So no, this is for Sensei. We have to find a nice place for him. Then we'll find a good enough place for us. She goes, "That's great. None of those other morons, they're just sitting there complaining. I was watching you. You're interesting." I said, "You're cute." She smiled, and that was our first little spark. And she was really good. She like dug right in, and we, first thing we did, we went down into the tractor shed and got all the tools we could find, and we brought them into the milk house because it was right into the thing barn, and that's kind of where all of the tanks for holding water were. And we started to figure it out, and then I the electricity actually went from the pole into the milk barn, right? It went out, and the wires were still continuous from the transformer into the meter, and they had taken the meter out, right? So I take a big hammer, and they had, a screw plate on it, and I took a hammer and I just hit the freaking. It's like a piece of cast iron that holds this metal plate. You hit it hard enough, straight on, it cracks like that. I've done it a million times. This looks like one of those little sledgehammers, and I just wind up and whack it, and yes, it explodes, and the thing flies off, but chunks of that metal hit the hot leads coming into the meter pan and kind of exploded. And she's like, "Oh my God!" I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine." And I kind of look in there, and it was fine. It just kind of metal chunks kind of went across the two leads, 220, boom, boom. So I stuck, got some copper wire, and I stuck it through the two leads. Went over to the they had circuit breakers actually, and I just started switching them, and the lights started going on, and things started whirring, and I said, okay, just lights is all we need at the moment. And then with that little explosion, the lady who drove us there, she came in and said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Well, I'm getting this." And she looks around, "Wow, you've done all this in the last hour? This is, I've just been listening to people complain. I forgot about you." I said, "Yeah, well, we got to live here, so we got to get it going." She goes, she looks up, "So there's no meter?" I said, "Yeah, we're just kind of borrowing some electricity, right? Can you get, do you have all the paperwork? Can you, get the utility company to turn it on?" She goes, "Oh, not a problem. My husband actually works for the utility company." I said, "Here you go." I'll send him over right away. I said, "Okay, that's good." So he won't complain that I'm doing this, because she knew when she knew what the explosion sounded like. She knew what I had done. And when I said, "We're just borrowing some electricity," she kind of smiled. And then she said, "Yeah, my husband works for the utility company." I said, "Okay, we'll get along great." So the guy came back, and he brought all his tools. I mean, she went off and got him and brought him back right then. And, we got everything going, and got lights and a fan up there for Sensei. And I said, "Sensei, this is where you're going to stay." And she went and got a bed for Sensei. Well, that left all of us without any, right? And people went into the house, and it was disgusting, and and I basically said, "Listen, guys, place is safe. Just got to clean it up, you know." And the two doctors wanted me to clean it. "Well, you cleaned up the barn." I said, "Yeah, that's for Sensei. He's our teacher. We need to respect him." And Sensei's standing right there, and I'm saying this, right? And he's like behind me. And I'm saying, that's Sensei. That's where he's. Anyway, from that point on, I woke up every morning and just started cleaning the place, fixing the place. Never needed anyone to tell me to do it. And, um, the next thing I did after getting Sensei a place, I found a shack in the woods. That was quite nice, right? So Judy and I cleaned it up, and that night we slept together in that bed. And from that point on, for a whole year, we slept every night together. So, we became, the best, because she was a great nurse. She was a surgical nurse. She was like better than a doctor. She knew it. So she taught me anatomy, in the most fun of ways. And so, and she was also an herbalist, and she was also a massage therapist. I mean, she was everything. She was just a great healer. And she was still in the military, And so she was the only one who was still in the military. And so she was really digging on the fact that she was going to stay there a year and not have to wear a uniform or salute anybody. So we got along great. So every morning we would get up and we would clean things and move things and start, and we would make Sensei, from in this little house. It looked far away. If you went down to the garden and then back up, but there was a little path that was like almost to the milk house, and we cut through that, and it was just a slight path, because the real plumbing was in the milk house. I had a bathroom in there too that we could use. So first night we got water running, got light in the barn and everything, and got Sensei a beautiful little apartment up in that barn. And the only thing I fixed in the house was the kitchen because there was no other kitchen. So I cleaned that up so we could cook, right? And I got electricity running into the kitchen, but nowhere else because the whole rest of the house was so old that it really everything was two peg and the insulation was also it would have to be totally rewired. And when the guy showed up, he's um, somewhat listening. Well, luckily, Dragon, a lot more people listen to these stories afterwards than during. So if you're just somewhat listening and you're the only one left, but there are five people there, maybe I'll keep telling the story. Um, so the bottom line is about service, right? And so once we got it up to par, we what we did was there were some guys who were in a commune not too far from where this farm was, and they had their act pretty well together. They had a nice farm going. So and they had a little business. They made tents, and they made hammocks, and they made a whole bunch of other things of that nature. So once the school got going, and it got to be towards fall, we had more students, not just the 12. About four of the three of the doctors who thought they were better than this left, relatively quickly. But then other people showed up wanting to learn, and they were all very, we were a hambu. A hambu is in the you know if you are learning a martial art, and jujitsu, kung fu, um, aikido, all those aren't the only. There's tai chi and qigong, and then there are other Asian arts that are healing, but they're a martial art too, right? It's a level of discipline what a martial art is. And your teacher, your sensei is in the martial arts. He is more of a master. There are other names for them, and a hambu is basically means your house. And in America they call them, I forgot what they call them, but they don't call them a hambu. They call them, if you're studying martial arts, you go to the whatever that is, and that's a more westernized version of it because a hambu is a family, right? And you live with mutual respect, and so it's not this almost military kind of obedience of your master, right? I mean, your sensei, and your hambu is, you know, you know, I kind of picked that up right away. That's why I made, the first place I cleaned up was a place for my sensei, not for myself, right? And and then all the other things I then moved on to clean up were the things that we all used. But from that point on, our sensei said, okay, so we're kind of comfortable. Well, I'm not comfortable living in this terrible house. And sensei would then clean it up, Look what Al's done, Follow his example. And I heard that more than once. Follow his example. And, I was kind of younger than everyone else. Those doctors were in their 30s. I was still just 22 years old, 19, some maybe maybe 19 and 20, right? Because in 21 and 22, 23, I was out there in New Mexico. But anyway, um, so what happened was um, I'm studying with our sensei, and I learned a lot of the disciplines I used with you guys. I learned from my sensei there. So I had all these other mentors, They weren't my sensei. They weren't my teacher. They weren't my master. They were my mentors. They were mentoring, and what they were mentoring me to be was something they wanted me to be. Not I didn't even know that, but they wanted me to be this. Like Billy Kluver, he wanted me to follow his footsteps in the art technology kind of realm. And I did for a while, and I did do that for 20 years or so. And but I just didn't do that. I was doing the medical stuff too. I was doing the social work stuff. I was doing the occult, esoteric stuff. I was doing, and I've always done more than one thing at a time. Now, I've learned later in my life that if you really want to do something well, you should just do one thing at a time and move on. Right now, you can have the discipline. The other thing I learned, that little saying, you know, jack of all trades, master of none. No, you can be the master of all trades. You just have to learn how to do something well. And Grandpa Stahl taught me how to do something well. Madam Olga Kluver taught me how to do one thing really well. I had a number of teachers in prep schools that taught me how to do things well. Lester Polikoff, my lighting designer master, he taught me how to be a really good theater designer, set designer, lighting designer, taught me, And when I was young, as I was learning and becoming really good at all these different things, between the ages of 19 and 35, I did a lot of stuff all at the same time. And by the time I was 25, maybe, 25, I learned that you kind of had to do, you could do a lot of things all at once, but in that moment, you had to do that one thing, right? So I was pretty good at that too. So no, once you learn how to master one thing, you can master a lot of things. You don't have to be stuck. And my little path is always not to be stuck, right? So after about a month of, and right away, the third day we got there, and by the time those guys left, he said, okay, yeah, we still have to clean this place up. We still have to do a lot of stuff. But the first thing we need to do is learn how to breathe, right? So that's where, the 20% in, 30% out, that's where I learned that, right? And we would spend, the first thing we would do, we had to get up with the sun. And we had to start the fires. I mean, we got there, it was summertime, start the fires. Yes, well, we actually need to do that to A, cook, B, boil water to clean things, because I really didn't get the hot water heat. I got water to toilets for a second day, but after that, the other plumbing took a little bit more. So, we had taps and some garden hoses so we could move water around, but we had these big pots, and so we'd fill them up with water and get it boiling and start washing stuff, right? So, but by the second or third day, after we had gotten, relatively the guys who we really don't want there, they left, those three doctors. And everybody else was kind of, well, this is going to be interesting. So nobody had done anything like this before. And that's when, Sensei called us his adepts, his cadre, He said, you're the first, you're the cadre. You're going to start this school off. You're going to be remembered and respected. And the way he said it wasn't like we were going to get a pat on the head, but it was something worth doing. It's worth doing right. So that's where we went on that one. And it was great to really bring that whole thing back to life. And by the third day, he got us to breathe, right? And he said, okay, this is the protocol. You're here to learn all this healing stuff I got for you. But before you can ever do any of that, we're going to have to do a whole bunch of other things because for you to understand where I'm going to take you, you're going to have to be able to, you're going to have to be able to breathe to put yourself in another dimension. Ooh, what's that? Well, you're going to have to learn how to meditate through your breath. Ooh, what's that? And that means that will take you into other dimensions that will give you perspectives on the things I'm going to teach so you won't have to suspend your disbelief. You'll be able to feel through, you're going to go into state and you'll be at the same frequency as the things I'm teaching you. And that's why I'm trying to teach you, right? So the more we did this, Dragon, the more we all respected each other and more we respected our sensei, right? And not because he was the boss or he was in charge or any of those things. It's because he respected us to respect him. And that's the relationship of adept to sensei, right? So that's what I'm trying to bring into this whole little experience here. Because once you do that, Dragon, you can respect yourself, right? And once you can respect yourself, you can accomplish anything, right? So we first learned how to breathe and we're cleaning the place up, right? And then he teaches us, okay, next thing we have to do is bathe. So the first thing we have to build is a bathhouse. So the place is still in total disrepair. And the first thing he has us do is build a bathhouse, a Japanese Shinto bathhouse, right? And it's a very simple building, Japanese architecture, and traditional Japanese architecture. Very minimal, very simple, very easy to put up, right? And so he had it all in his head about what it was. And we sat around and meditated, and he put in our minds what he wanted. And I said, wow, this is so freaking cool. So I always keep, I always have my little composition book. So I kind of drew it. And he said, well, that's good, so other people can see it. And so the guy who was um, the band lady's husband, who worked for the utility company, by this time, he's, got a meter in. He's already talking to me. So what kind of, this is just a, 60 amp 220 thing, don't you want 200 amps and maybe three phase? And shouldn't we be doing? I said, yeah, you want to drop the equipment? I'll do all the work. And so he said, oh yeah, we got tons of stuff. Yeah, we'll just bring it your way. Uh, uh, anyway, so we are, moving forward, and we're building a bathhouse, right? And so we get concrete and stone, and we build the bath first, right? And then we build a floor so we can step into the bath, and then we build walls and a roof over the bath, right? And so we have to get water to it, and we have to heat it, and we have to cleanse ourselves because that's how he kept reiterating, good thoughts in, bring good words, bring good actions, bring good deeds, bring good outcomes, right? So bottom line is that that's what we did. And we didn't complain about anything. I mean, we were basically living, this place is like the Hilton compared to what we were living in that farm the first few weeks, you know. And, there's a difference between complaining and describing the situation, right? I don't know how you're listening to what I'm saying and conceiving it to be a complaint, because pretty much all I've talked about is how lucky and blessed I am to always, being taken care of by love's co-creation, through my service to it. And pretty much everything I do is for other people and not myself. And now it always turns out pretty good for me. I mean, I have, 68 and a half years experience of, or 69, no, 69 years and a half, right? Um, Years experience of that in my life. So, I don't think I complain too much, because I appreciate everything that occurs to me. Some people say, "Oh, that's so terrible that happened to you." No, it's a good thing. I learned a lot from it. I had three little rules. Doctor, do no harm. You know, um, Find a good exit strategy to protect the innocent. Three, don't get involved unless you can learn something from it. I only got involved with John because I learned a great deal from John. And I really am thankful for that. I really, really learned a tremendous amount from him. And um, I'm really grateful for even John throwing me under the bus all those times, being cruel and mean. Where I learned a great deal. You know, and I appreciate everything he did. I really do. And I only hope the best for John. But living up there all by himself is not a good, healthy thing for him. That's for sure. He should really try and re-engage back into humanity. Why do most people have jobs? If they, I mean, I would have a job if someone, I can barely walk. And in the modern day, everything is computerized. I used to be able to just hang out at a electric supply store, and when I would see the guy who, would go to the counter, and the people knew who he was and talked to him like he was an owner. He's got, and he didn't have to pay money but sign, he had an account there. I could see that he was totally upset about something. I'd say, "Hey, what's your problem?" And he would say, "Oh man, I got this job and these guys are screwing it up and I can't be there. I got this other job I have to take care." I said, "I'm an electrician. I'm an electrician like you are, you know." And I would, you know, tell the guy, "Hey, go get me a OSB 340 starter," right? And he'd bring it out, and I'd take it out of the box and I'd show how to wire it up. He goes, "You're hired." I can't do that anymore because none of those guys exist. In any large town that has a number of electric companies, what has occurred is those guys have gotten old and gray like me. And some large corporation like Electric America has come and bought them out. I'll give you $3 million for your license and your business and your name. And, they sell it to them. And now the only way you can interact with that business is online. You can't talk to any human being to show them in a blink of an eye that you know what you're talking about, right? So, and then if they even do come and talk to me, they see how old I can't go up on a ladder, I can't bend over, I can't, and these aren't complaints. This is just reality, right? So, the real issue is that there are close to 20 million people in America who have spent their whole life working for America, and America has basically thrown them under the bus, kind of like John Birmingham did, 32 different times. And I thank John because, man, every time, the last time he threw me under the bus, he begged me. It was back in September. He threw me out in April, and I didn't go back till July. And I went back to July, and he threw me out, and I was only there less than a day. "Oh, you're making me so anxious," because he was letting bad thoughts come into his head, which brought bad words out of his mouth, which gave him bad actions, which gave him bad deeds, which gave him bad outcomes. And then, he was so freaked out that it's your fault because I was the only human being there, because I'm the only friend he has. I'm the only person who cares about him. After all the you know, bad thoughts, bad words, all of that. All I've been able to try to do is help him out. Get him balance. Listen to him for hours on end. Same thing. Trying to help him find a point of reference where he could do better with his life because he has so much talent, so much opportunity. He lives in that big house. He's got, he's a great filmmaker. Look at the thing he just did. That was like, some no, some French art film. It was really pretty amazing. I love that shot he had from behind the cat, and he was off on the other side of the room, and whenever John would walk around, the cat would like watch him, like wondering, is he going to try and kill me now, or should I get out of here, or can I just stay in bed and be relaxed? The whole film, it was almost irrelevant what John was saying. What was amazing was the action going on, and most people can't even appreciate that. Now, some people who appreciate film might be able to appreciate John's work, but the average person, they're so addicted to what's on the flat screen that they can't really see something of any depth. And what's truly brilliant about John's film is that he's almost unconscious about what he's doing, but he's very well trained and very well skilled. So, and he's got a good camera, he's got a nice tripod, he's got good lighting, he's got a good computer that does good editing, and he's got an amazing, I don't know, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, he only had one guy, um, rent basically I rented the space to this one guy because John needed a renter, and John was off on one of his adventures to Texas, and I told the guy, yes, move in, and it would either work or not work, And the other thing is, I needed, uh, you know, that guy there, so he moved in, and what did he do? He fixed the hot water, so downstairs had hot water, the kitchen had hot water, the washing machine had hot water, the shower had hot water, and he put in an amazing wood stove in the basement, and man, all he had to do was keep that wood stove hot, and it heated the whole friggin' building. You didn't have to spend a nickel on a heat pump. You just had to put wood in it, and because the whole building is concrete, it's a mass sink. He just kept heating. My whole place would be warm, and a number of times, I would be the fire keeper because I've done that for years, and you know, um, John was unable to really keep a fire. It was pretty amazing. It's not really hard. Draft fuel. That's it. Air and fuel. That's pretty much it. And once it gets going, you just keep feeding it. Once you got the coals at the bottom, you just keep feeding it. Anyway, that guy put in hot water, a wood stove. He fixed a number of other things, and because his business was telecommunications, he had microwave antennas all over the county. And so he pointed one up to the school and stuck it on top of our school. And we had John has better internet than Cox Cable does, right? And this guy is such a nice guy. After John threw him out, meaning this guy desperately needed a place to go. And John wasn't there. And I said, sure, move in, right? Didn't even ask. And John met him. But John said, I don't know. He's such a bossy guy. No, he was a competent guy, right? And so, the guy moved in. He needed a place to go. So I said, do it. So he did it. He was happy. He was there for 2 weeks. Then John shows back up. And I say, John, listen, this guy is really doing a great job here. And John needed some cash at that moment. And the guy was able to give him like $2,000. Just, you need some money? Here, I'll pay 2 months up, right? And this guy, was basically would pay him John anything because he was desperate for a place to live. And he liked the place. So he moved in. He was comfortable. That wood stove was for him. It was right there. It kept him nice and warm, but it warmed upstairs, John's space. He put the hot water in so he could have a shower and he could wash his clothes and he could wash the dishes. And he put in the microwave for his business because he knew that he might get snowed in there, and he still wanted to be able to do his, because he wrote software. And anyway, so By the time spring came, the guy already knew that, he's got to get out of here. And because he just, John would just sit at the steps and listen to everything this guy said on the phone, because he, wanted to, do his business. And John was just waiting for him to say something about John. And then he'd go down and yell at him and kick him out. And he never did, but he kept calling, "You're just so bossy. You're just so," meaning he was competent, right? And he just ignored John and went on having his life. But he realized that he had to be out. Well, another one of Inga's homes came, Inga's house, where her son lived during once in a while, because her son's from, lives in Germany. So anyway, he needed a person. He had a guy who wasn't even paying the rent. I facilitated one guy leaving and this other guy coming in. So it helped the German boy, Inga's son. And John had this guy stay there, and the guy left him a bunch of furniture and paid him more money and left the stove and the microwave. Now, John used to spend $200 a month to have his smartphone be the hotspot for his computer, right? But now John has the best internet, in Roanoke, and he doesn't pay a nickel for it. So John has so many blessings, has so much talent, has so much potential. I don't know, I gotta pay my bills. Well, I keep telling him, John has all these voices. And I've known people who made a fortune out of doing voiceover for commercials. And well, John could do that in his sleep. Does he even send out an email about it? No, right? He just, likes to go on about how hard he's working on that school, And he has, painted it, fixed it, and done a lot of great things to it, which is great, But one of the reasons why people get a job is to interact with people. That's one reason I liked working. And my job today is to go out and help people. Talk to, like today, I was going to meet this one guy because he, I was going to give him a proposal about something that he wanted me to think about, right? So, I would have done it and he would have gave me a little cash and that would have been fun, right? So, and I do that every now and then. A lot of people know my skill set. Hey, I don't need you forever, and I don't. I have this one little thing I need you to think about and give me insight on, and then they'll pay me pretty good for that. But the universe doesn't want me to go back and do that thing I did in the corporate world because I got too distracted, right? So the bottom line is my job today. So I went to talk to him. He didn't show up, but I got to talk to 6 other people who I interfaced and helped in my own little way. One person a lot, 2 other people a little. I gave them things to read that I wrote, and they kind of looked at them and said, "Whoa, I've been thinking about this. This is interesting." And I gave them my card and I said, "Well, call me." So that's my job. My job is to go out in the world and help people in service to love's co-creation. Now, a guy like John, you're gonna, he can't stand work, but he, if he judges other people on the same level that he thinks people are judging him, specifically his father. And see, why I thank John so much is that John has been, I keep calling him the canary in the coal mine. He is the specific vehicle to look at. Go watch his videos. They are so deep, and this is the level of ignorance of the general public, is that they think he's a buffoon or nuts or whatever, but he's not, right? And his films are really art, and pretty much everything he does is art, And it's sad that he can't be self-reflective on a level that he can, as Plato said, that an unself-reflected life is a life not worth living, no matter what you do, right? So John's doing all this stuff, great stuff, and you can't be self-reflective. Me, all the I've done 1,000 shows now. That's pretty amazing. In less than uh, 14 months, I've done 1,000 shows. So that's why I keep saying, guys, you should go back and look at some of them because there's some pretty good ones. Uh, Dragon said, you should change your channel name to Bitching About Birmingham. Well, that sounds good, but no, I'm not going to do that because I don't bitch about John. I mean, I really appreciate John. John, I still, people go, how could you even, now they bitch about John. I don't, I basically go on about how he's a genius, uh, very similar to our present president, who is a very stable genius, and that's John, he's a genius. He's a bitchin' genius. But no, I don't complain about John. I just kind of say what he did, you know, you know. And all you have to do is look at his videos. I don't. But the last one he did, I thought was brilliant, really, really. And the one that he went on about, teaching his children how to play guitar. The sad thing is, you can see how much John loves his kids. It's sad that he hasn't been with them for 3 years, 4 years. He has missed some of the best time to be with a child. And the fact that they haven't had a father with them is going to weigh upon them. I mean, I've seen, as a social worker, I see what that does. How our society incarcerates so many fathers. Thus, their children are fated to follow in their father's footsteps. And again, all I say is that what I read to you there, that's what I kind of wanted to talk about. But Dragon here keeps, and Dragon is a good name there because he's dragging the conversation in directions that are almost antecedent, opposite of what I'm talking about. So I care about Dragon, and but my path is always I follow the path of love's co-creation. That's where I'm coming from. So I guess I'm tired now. How long have I been doing? Oh, almost 4 hours. Okay. So it's time to go to bed, right? I've told you many stories, and they all have the similar thread. And that thread is we need to awaken ourselves to our collective connection to love's co-creation throughout all our relations, right? Our life isn't about ourselves. It's about all of us, right? And I talk about John as much as I do because he's my friend. I care about him. I want him to be happy, right? Uh, Rasputin, talk. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, Dragon. So, you seem to be the only one communicating. There's another 5 people here, but I wonder if that's. Do you have, Dragon? Do you have other Gmail accounts, and that you just kind of leave them all up there? I don't really know. I know nothing about how all of this works, but you seem to. You seem to be almost as computer savvy as John is. Anyway, so good night, everyone. I'm tired. I'm gonna go lie next to the boiler. It's a good friend. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Sleep well, everyone.